everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games most of the time. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, I have Josh Torres.
Finally, the RPG that we've been waiting for released this week.
James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
And Chow Min Woo.
Hello.
Yeah, only missing Adam this week. He had a familiar scheduling conflict, but we should see him back next week. And as you heard from this intro, we have all been playing, well, not all, but most of us in this call have been playing a new release, a highly anticipated release, one that seemingly has been well received. We are recording this podcast on the day after the release of Street Fighter VI.
RPG.
So,
I hit RPG.
I have a brilliant idea. Maybe I should just buy Brian Street Fighter 6 as a birthday present. It was his birthday a few days ago.
It's how
I can open the door to him to the world of fighting games.
I've played Street Fighter 4 a little bit.
There you go.
I found it in like a bargain bin. I was like, oh, 15
well, this
years
is
ago.
better than Street Fighter 4. I promise you that.
Is it?
It's
only been a day, Chow. You already say it's better than Street Fighter 4?
4 is a low bar for me, man. I hate 4.
To be a bit candid here, we're obviously this is our first podcast recording in June. I know a lot of us are still working our way through Zelda. We've had a few other releases. Last week I talked a little bit about Miasma Chronicles. We're of course all looking ahead to Final Fantasy 16, but we don't play RPGs exclusively. And Street Fighter 6 might be a little bit more topical than you might originally think. So thank you for indulging us and allowing us to talk about this new release that is not quite our usual purview. But I don't know. We do what we want. We're going to talk about Street Fighter, at least for a little bit.
Look, it is 1/3 of RPG. And, me and Alex, it's funny because I think me and Alex came to the same idea on separate wavelengths. Because when Capcom first showed the World Tour single player RPG mode for this game, I think there's a little thought in that bubbled up between me and Alex that we didn't actually verbalize to each other until much later. But for me, I was like, this is it. I was thinking at that time, I was like, if no one's gonna do it, then I'm gonna do it. Of just writing about this game because that seems stupid and somewhat novel. And Alec is a big Street Fighter fan, so of course he was always going to come to that conclusion as well. Earlier this week, I've been playing Street Fighter 6 pre-release for the past few weeks. I didn't really touch the core fighting game up until the official launch, because I was focused on this World Tour single player RPG mode, and I wrote up a lot about it on the site, just basically giving a really full deep dive analysis for people of what can RPG players expect from this mode. It'll be weird. It'll be I even opened up the piece to say, I know what you're thinking. Why does RPG site have a review here for Street Fighter 6? And I go into hey, this is a full-fledged RPG. You have this open world metro city that you're exploring for the first part of it, and it's what you'd expect out of a standard RPG. You make create a character, silent protagonist. You've seen all the crazy creations online. If not, you've either messed with the demo or you've seen it in the marketing in some form. And you use that original character. You level them up. You gain the moves and the move sets and the special moves of the various playable Street Fighter 6 characters as you meet them in the RPG mode. And then you fight grunts. It has stats. You have damage numbers flying out. You level up. You gain skill points from leveling up. You have skill trees. And then each piece of clothing that you obtain or buy, you can that all has armor value. It can increase your defense. And then you're also leveling up the attack power of your punches and kicks and throws and the special moves.
All right,
And
Josh.
yeah.
Basically, I'm trying to just paint a picture in my mind's eye. So we're talking about Street Fighter 6. You, James, and Chow have all been playing this a lot, which is part of the reason why we're opening with this. So when I have dabbled in fighting games very little, but when I think of a fighting game story mode, I think of just maybe a few cutscenes, maybe a few menus, but then of course a fighting game, view from the side, player on the left, enemy on the right, and you'll go through some sort of very loose story where you'll fight characters back to back to back. Now, when you say world tour, I know you're kind of in the process of teeing us up here, but like, what is it when you say it's an RPG like mode? Like we talked, the last time we had a conversation like this was back with Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, kind of had a RPG like mode, but this seems like it goes even further than that.
Yeah, in some ways, because Grand Blue Fantasy Versus was there was a story that you were following, but it was like through stages. So like you go through these stages, they were like maybe 5 minutes maximum. But it was like it felt like a more divided up affair, sort of like the Grand Blue Fantasy mobile game where you do go through that in stages as well. And it does have like some of the progression mechanics in Grand Blue with all the weapon grid and stuff and that. But this is like more seamless because you're actually traveling to points. You're uncovering this map. You're unlocking fast travel points, and then like saying, oh, like there'll be like a mini map and say go here to go talk to this person. You're actually speaking with them, seeing what they have to say, and then they say, oh, go here, do this, and then like so they actually send you on like objectives because like the main. I'm not gonna say like the story of Street Fighter 6's World Tour mode is anything like the home to write home about, but it's mainly at the beginning of the game after you create your original character, you train under Luke. He gives you like the basic controls of the game, teaching you like the very basics of how to play.
And for people who are dumb like me, Luke is a new character. He's a character on the cover.
Yes, Luke is the main character of Street Fighter 6. He's the guy you see on the cover on the store page. You're like, who is that blonde dude who has the boxing gloves? That's Luke.
Gotcha.
And he was first introduced as like the last DLC character, Street Fighter 5, like kind of teasing the future of Street Fighter with Street Fighter 6 through that.
And they had to nerf him like 3 times before people are okay, and people still find him broken.
He was really good at Street Fighter 5, but his face pretty cool in Street Fighter 6, but different as well. So like so you kind of train under him at this training gym, and then very early on at like the very beginning of World Tour, you get introduced to like your rival character, like the Gary to your Ash, as Alex editorialized into my review, which is fine. Alex. That's it's very Alex. But yeah, it's an apt comparison. He's very into like face you, being a rival. Try to get stronger, and in many ways, it's more about your original character going through like there's certain things that happen very early on that makes your rival character sort of like, man, I'm wasting time here. I got to get stronger fast. So he drifts away from you pretty early on, and then a lot of that main story mode plot line is kind of like following your rival's footsteps and like what are they up to, and it's like a lot of very conspiracy type stuff on what they're going through. So that's sort of where you're following it, and then along the way you're gonna get into a lot of like shenanigans as you're trying to find out like why your rival, his name's Bosch, why Bosch is acting the way he is and what is he going through. And so it's pretty involved in the sense that like you're actually interacting with characters, not just like going like stage to stage to stage. You're actually doing side quests. There's mini games. There's consumable items. There's shops. And it's kind of like a whole smorgasbord of what you would expect from a modern RPG these days. So for me, like when I think about it, when I was writing this article from the perspective of like someone who, for our audience who likes RPGs, I was very clear that I was like, I don't know if this is like worth the full price if you're only interested in the RPG mode of the game. But I think if you do find it on discount, or if you're interested enough to, be willing to like play the whole package, even beyond the RPG mode, maybe it's worth full price because obviously there's a lot more to this game than just RPG mode, obviously. But completing like this RPG mode, like hitting credits, like for me took over 20 hours. But there's like a whole lot of like post game content you can do as well. There's like high level fighters. You can like continue to like train under like the masters of like the playable characters to get their moves, see more interactions.
It's also worth noting that they've confirmed that the World Tour mode is going to be updated with DLC characters when they're released.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Have both of you finished this World Tour mode?
No.
Oh,
I have, yeah. So what's up?
I was asking. It says that the game you can unlock some free costumes from playing that mode. Is that how it works?
If you max out relationships with the characters in World Tour, that's how you unlock their alternate outfit.
Or you pay, right? Is that how it goes, or you can't?
I don't know, like how I didn't see the other method of like the fighter coins. I don't know if you only receive fighter coins through paying or not. I know there is like a microtransactions in this because there's like a battle pass, like a free track battle pass and a premium battle pass that like only has cosmetics. Apparently, I didn't really look into that. But as far as I know, like yeah, if you want to go through the free method for those classic costumes, like to contextualize right, it's like the iconic costumes that like classic Street Fighters have had. Like you have the gi that Ryu and Ken traditionally wear. You have the traditional Chun-Li outfit, traditional Cammy outfit, traditional Dalsim, Zangief, etc. Like what they would wear from like Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 4. You know.
I guess I just assume that that's what they would wear by default. Like
no, you have like the default costume for like Ken in this game is like he has like an like a long ass like kind of beaten down brown coat because he's like under hiding like a hoodie on.
Yeah, they say it's Hobo Can, which is this version.
Yeah, and then like Ryu has like a different outfit. Ryu's shirtless in this game is default outfit. So, and there's just like the bottom half like his gi all roughened up. And then Cammy has like the whole like she has like the like I think it was like a denim like polo. I forgot, but she has a very different look to her in her default outfit.
I don't know. To me, that seems like a smart incentive for the story mode.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things that like you will have to grind it out because like leveling up those bond ranks for the characters. Like if you're just playing normally under like a person's style, you'll like max out one of them by the end of story mode, and then like for the others, I guess you'll just have to continue to like give them gifts and fight other NPCs that like have their style. Because if you fight a character that is like say using Cammy's moveset, and like this character is like a student under Cammy, like after you beat up that character, you'll also gain experience points for like Cammy's thing. So that's kind of like the main definer of this World Tour RPG mode in terms of like character progression. Is like you don't have a party system; it's only your original character, but this original character is highly customizable. Like when a character, I even noted like in my piece that like there's a lot of considerations you have to make. Well, I mean, you don't have to make these considerations. How you model your character will have different. It'll slightly affect like your hitboxes and your reach in like combat. Like if you have like really long arms, you'll have like more attack reach towards like hitting opponents. Or like if you have dinky arms, you'll have to get up closer to them to hit them because you're affecting your hitboxes as you're modeling like the shape of your character.
So can you terrorize like I don't know, like the whole single player using what like happened to Soul Calibur where you had like a giant blob character with like infinite hitbox or something like that?
No, it's not that crazy. It's not as crazy as Soul Calibur's. I know what you're talking about. Those were insane. You can't. It's not as crazy as that. And for the best, really.
That's a stupid idea.
Yeah, but it's you're making a human character. They can be like any. They can take many shapes. You can make this like it's not. You can't make like a polygonal like square person or like a crazy like infinite hitbox thing that you're talking. You still have to make something that resembles a human at the end of the day. How you go about that is up to you. And then as you're as I mentioned earlier, as you're meeting up with the other Street Fighter characters in a World Tour mode, on your initial meeting with them, you'll gain their style, and like you equip styles, kind of like you equip gear, where you go to your character customization and say, "Hey, choose a style." So I can, if I met Ryu and Ken before, I can like equip Ryu's style or equip Ken's style, and then once I equip their style, your character will have their normal moves. Like you have Ryu's punches, Ken's punches, Ryu's kicks or Ken's kicks, um, but and stuff like that. So like they're normals. Um, you also obtain like mechanics that are exclusive to that character alone, like Ryu's Denjin charge. If you use Ryu's style, if you equip that, you can do the Ryu's Denjin charge. Or if you equip Ken's style, you have access to his command dashes that he only has. And those lead to different follow-ups for Ken. So you'll have that if you equip Ken's style. The thing that you can really highly customize, aside from like gaining a character's like move set, is their special moves. Upon like your first meeting with a character, upon getting their style, you also get like around 2 to 3 of their special moves. But these special moves are all you can equip them different ones from different characters. So say I'm in Ryu's style, but I have access. I met Zangief and Dalsim before, and Dalsim gave me his teleport, and Zangief gave me his command grab and lariat, and also Dalsim gave me his fireball projectile. Um, I with Ryu's, I can equip Ryu's move style or move set, and I can equip Zangief's command grab, Ken's Shoryuken, and Dalsim's teleport. Um, all under while still having Ryu's moveset. The only limitation to this is one, moves that share the same input cannot be slotted together. So, say I have Luke's Sandblast and Ryu's Hadoken.
You can
Since
only
they
pick
both,
one.
yeah, since they both used quarter circle forward motion on them, you can only pick one of them. Because obviously, if you tried to pick both, it would override. The weird thing is this also applies for moves that like use the punch or kick. So let's say I try to equip Ryu's Hadouken and I need a quarter circle forward. If there's a move that has quarter circle forward kick, I still can't equip both of those, even though they're assigned different buttons, because they still share the same input motion. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I get what you're
yeah.
saying.
So that's kind of one of the weird limitations to that. But other than that, like a lot of moves don't obviously share like overlap. Like you can equip like a whole move set that have different motions and you'll be fine. Also early on in World Tour mode, as you're still low level and still leveling up, like the amount of special moves that you equip on the slots will be limited, and you have to, as you're leveling up on the skill tree, you can unlock more skill slots, special move skill slots, to unlock more of that. And then it's also the skill slots that you have. You have like up to like 7 or 8 when you're on the ground, and then you have like up to 3 when you're in the air, because there are some characters that have special moves in the air, like Cammy and Ryu. And then once as for your supers, in this game, each character has 3 supers: one that's level 1, one that's level 2, and one that's level 3. As you gain more style ranks and more higher bond levels of the character, you'll gradually unlock that character's more of their supers, and then eventually you'll be able to mix and match them with that same limitation of input in mind. But other than that, that's aside from those like small limitations here and there, you're free to go wild. So like if you want to do a fucked up thing where you have Blanca's move set with Dalsim's teleport and Zeef's command grab, you can go wild. You can, yeah, whatever feels right for you, whatever. And that's kind of the cool thing about um World Tour mode, because you're constantly, you know thinking about like how do I want to make my character, what move seems right, what do I enjoy, how do I enjoy playing this game? Do I want to make someone that's really really good at throws, and then so you're just beefing up their throw strength while having like Manon's command grab plus Geef's command grab because they don't share the same motion, and plus your regular throw. You know, you have someone that's just constantly throwing, or if you're like you really want to focus on like special moves like projectiles and Guile's flash kick. You know, you have like your special move strength, and then so you can start specking into like, okay, I want to be someone that's really good at like spamming projectiles, so you can have like Guile's sonic boom, Ryu's Hadoken, you know, because they don't share the same motion. And then you know you can have two projectiles at your disposal while having moves that like kind of push them away. Like say like Chun-Li's spinning bird kick, if you like the EX version, push them back. So like little things like that to like consider if you want to play like that. And stats do play a big part in World Tour because there'll be fights where you like going against characters that are like several levels above you, so you have to really work for your win because you're like if you're like more than like 9 levels back, you're barely doing damage. You're barely doing shit to them. While like a single combo from them is just like taking out half of your health, and you're just like fuck. In the middle, like you can still like use consumable items in the middle of combat, but you know there's definitely an RPG stat aspect to it that's prevalent to it. So there'll be like if you haven't been like doing side quests as much, for example, you might feel like a difficulty spike here and there, or you might have to like go grind here and there if like there's something that's like kind of getting in your way, and the stat difference is like too much to handle. But that's the cool thing about that World Tour RPG mode is, you know, making a character whatever the hell you want and making them look whatever the hell you want as well, because it's really cool how the Capcom did clothing in this game, because no matter how fucked up your character is modeled, those clothes will fit them no matter what. And if you have Dawson's moveset, which is like stretching like his limbs, like that clothing will stretch as you're firing off like those moves. So yeah, they really put a lot of effort into that, so you can make them look a certain way. Eventually on the skill tree you have you'll have the option to transmog them, so you can equip gear that's like has good stats, but you'd have to sacrifice like looking good for it, so you can equip another set of gear that you want to just show on top of your character. If you want to make them look a certain way, you can like gain like color dye in there too. So if you want to go color each aspect of your clothing, you have some accessories you can wear as well. So it's really versatile. At any time if you want to change like your character's model, you can just go to the stylist shop and you can play like a really trivial amount of like in-game currency, and you can like recreate your character from scratch as well. So it's cool, you know. I mean, there's a whole lot more to it, you know. Like you're just, but I think it's just there's something novel about it at the end of the day that I hope more fighting games do. I really do like the aspect of that never got old to me was if you when you go up to like non-hostile NPCs, right? You can like go up to them, and most of them you can like press like square on the Xbox controller to like fight them, to like say, hey, let's have a fight. And you can just go fight them. You'll like cross arms, and then you'll get into a brawl with them. But you can also just like you can like use these things called master actions, which are basically moves that characters give you that you can use while you're like running around the open world. So like Ken will give you a Shoryuken, and then Chun-Li will give you a spinning bird kick, for example. And like these have practical uses where like you're traversing around the environment, because your character can't like jump. For example, you'd have to use like Chun-Li's spinning bird kick if you want to do some platforming to get from one place to another. While Ken, you use a Shoryuken to like get up to a higher place or a higher platform if your character just can't reach it and they have no jump. So you just Shoryuken to get up there. Or you can also use these master actions to immediately just start a fight with a character. You just basically just Shoryuken the fuck out of them, and then you'll do damage, and then you'll gain like an initiative in battle like right away because you're like they'll be down on health. You're ready to go, and you're just going in there and swinging. So, and that was like an aspect of this mode that never got tired to me because I just kind of like. There's something really gratifying. You're just hitting people in that mode to just start a fight.
Do the other Street Fighter games have any sort of like? I know World Tour is new and it's been talked about quite a bit, at least for our purposes. But just the fact that there's a creative character at all, is that like new to Street Fighter? Like
It's
completely?
totally new.
Yeah,
But there is a world tour in Street Fighter game before. It was in Street Fighter Alpha Free, and how that was done is basically when you fight a character, you get EXP from your points, but you can only fight them once. So you have to like beat them perfect to get the most amount of EXP from it. And
yeah, but it's not like as fleshed out. There's it's still at the end of the day it's like stringing along fighting game stages, like fighting game rounds, in that mode. Capcom has done this ever since like Red Earth, which is back in the early '90s, which is like kind of blending like these RPG modes into a fighting game framework. So, like Red Earth had like it's like basically a boss rush, and like your character's leveling up in the middle of battle. During that, kind of like little gems will fall out of like these bosses as you're fighting them, and you're like kind of gaining stats and experience points off of that. But it was never like this expansive in any of their previous fighting games.
Is there an alternate like single player mode, like for a more traditional one, or is this pretty much it?
Yeah. It has your standard like single player modes that you find in fighting. There's arcade mode, I know there's like a survival mode. I didn't check if there's, but there's definitely an arcade mode, like, and that's your standard like arcade. Like when you start someone's arcade mode, you'll get like a story set with some like artwork illustrations. You go through a string of stages. In between like the halfway point of those stages, you'll have like the beat up a vehicle bonus stage, and then at the end of it, you take on like there's not really a final boss for arcade mode that you fight. And that's not like everyone like goes to Bison or faces off against Bison, but they finish up their last stage, and then like more just illustrations, and it's like kind of like a light story continuation of what they're dealing with in Street Fighter 6.
So the World Tour mode isn't a replacement. It's all like it's on top.
It's on top. It's complementary, right? It's not a substitute for arcade mode. No, it's like, hey, there's a much more fleshed out single player mode that uses your original character in it, and that's kind of the main point of it. And that's kind of I think that's kind of one of the weaknesses of the World Tour mode is since it's so focused on your original character, like the other playable characters in Street Fighter 6 that you meet through it, they don't really do much in it aside from like being these masters that you meet. They don't really have much story relevance in the grand scheme of things. So you're fairly cut off from them aside from that. There's other quirks to like World Tour mode that like I kind of lay out in my non-scored review as well. Because at the end of the day, like I was extensively evaluating 1/3 of a game, so I'm like,
Right.
I was like, it would be bad. It would feel bad to give this a score because this is not really a review of Street Fighter 6, the overall package. This is just for the purposes of our audience. Well, we're checking out this RPG mode for that to see if they'd like it or not, and I think they would. I think they would if they like kind of like it. It's very goofy. It doesn't really take itself seriously, and I appreciate that. It's like fitting for it. It's very charming in that way. Like the first time you meet Honda, he's in like this kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like a fusion hybrid restaurant, but also does like kabuki performances, and there's like a giant sumo ring in the middle of it as well. And like he looks very menacing, but he's like doing a kabuki performance. The first time you meet Zangief, like you're like working out with him, and like your original character just like struggling because to keep up with Zangief's workout routine. The first time you meet Blanca, you don't really meet Blanca. You meet like the joke Blanca costume that the previous Street Fighter producer Ono. Yeah, he's ex Capcom now, but he always had like this Blanca keychain that he used to like kind of share where he was at, and also to tease like Street Fighter V characters. But that was kind of like an iconic thing about Ono. Was his Blanca keychain, so they have it as a full on game, like that, like it's like a not a character. You see like an imposter Blanca. Then as you're chasing after it, Blanca shows up and is like, "Oh, you were chasing after my imposter." It's like, my imposter has been a real problem. Like social media has like the wrong idea about me because of this imposter. It's very goofy. So it's but it has a lot of heart, and I think that's like a similar sentiment I've seen in other reviewers and other people who've like taken a look at this mode. It's like it's an interesting mode that like it feels good because it also, even if you're like, it's enjoyable if you're a newcomer, but even if you're like someone that's like the Street Fighter world and the Street Fighter legacy, it does so much to honor that plus more. Like Alex and I were talking about kind of like the broad walk, where you're kind of first dumped into the world tour mode after you like exit the gym from Luke. You kind of go into like town, not town square, obviously, but it's sort of modeled after Manhattan, but you're kind of placed into like the not town square of Metro City, and like on the ground, you just have like kind of like this like kind of like Hall of Fame list of like all the fighting games that Capcom has ever made listed out, starting from the first Street Fighter, and like going chronologically, like listing out all the games that all the fighting games that they ever made, you know, in it, and like it was so cool to see that because it's like it honors Street Fighter, Final Fight, and like other Capcom fighting games in like in a very respectful and in a very like wholesome manner. That like it really makes you feel good that like, you know what, Capcom has been up and down throughout the years, but they've never stopped believing in fighting games. They never stopped believing in the genre.
They stopped once after 3.
I mean, yeah, but they never stopped purposely. Like they kept on going. They still,
I know.
like, at the end of the day, you still had Third Strike, and after Third Strike, yeah, there was a lull for a while, but they reinvigorated the fighting game genre with 4. You know,
There was a good backstory with it. I think it was Ono talking to Keiji Inafune saying, "I want to make fighting games," and they're like, "Huh, they don't sell. What the hell are you smoking?"
I know, but at the end of the day, that like when you think about like the legacy of fighting is and the ones that like push it forward and the ones who brought it back, Street Fighter has always played a large role in that, you know. And even when things look dicey with like 5, you know, like by like throughout the beginning of 5's lifespan, and like it definitely became a better game throughout the years, but a lot of people fell off of it over the years as well because the first impression of it wasn't good at all, and a lot of people kind of dropped off. And then I think a big question on everyone's mind, like going to 6, was like, how are they going to bring it back with 6? Because 5 was like at the launch was like a disaster, you know, like, and a lot of people felt kind of bummed out that like, you know, about Street Fighter. It's like, and now here we are, a fuckload of people are like excited to like play Street Fighter again, and they you know, in some ways, you know, they're not only like, you know, bringing the next chapter Street Fighter forward, they're also trying to. I'm hoping, you know, this also provides like a standard template of like what future fighting games should strive for as well, because this feels like a full package out of the gate. You know, like sure that has like a cool World Tour single player RPG mode, which might be a big ask for like other fighting games. You know, personally, I like this approach because while like the Guilty Gear Strive approach of like the 5-hour cutscene is like cool, like you don't really like, it's cool to see once, but like you don't really interact with it, so you're kind of like, okay. So I like playing the video game, so that's cool. But even that like you have, you know, it sure in the battle hubs you have like the whole fucking Arc System Works lobby of like where you have to create like a character, you have to run around and like go to like the arcade setups to like get into a match with the character there. But for custom matches, you know, it's not a fucking disaster. I mean, custom matches is just a list, a very like a very straightforward like menu where like you can have multiple matches going on simultaneously, and it's just like it's very easy to navigate. You don't have to like get like a your own character and like make a custom room that has like its own modeled custom like things to like walk around in. It's like no, you can just like menu through that very easily, and it all like kind of works seamlessly as well. Um, and also it's just obviously, you know, Street Fighter Six. This is the first time they used rollback. You know, a lot of modern fighting games have done it. You know, Guilty Gear Strive has done it. More
Technically, Street Fighter V had it. It was just not
quote
good
unquote.
back.
Yeah, it wasn't good implementation.
Well, technically,
Meanwhile, yeah.
back then.
Meanwhile, the netcode in Street Fighter 6 is absurdly good.
Yeah,
Holy shit!
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can actually play on Wi-Fi. You can't. Apparently, some Mike Ross was playing on Wi-Fi with some people in Japan, and their code is good. It's like,
To be fair, I think part of the reason is that if you've gotten a new router within the last like 2 or 3 years, chances are it's a Wi-Fi 6 router, and the current gen consoles have Wi-Fi 6, and that does help with packet loss. So if you're playing on Wi-Fi 6, inevitably it's just going to be a better experience than Wi-Fi of the past.
but also like when you're thinking about not just like like obviously good net code, like that's thankfully becomes more of a standard in fighting, modern fighting games, but also like tools for newcomers and like even like more experienced people alike. That resorting to like the character guides, for example, have been really helpful in this game for me. I really like them because like if you're interested in a character and you don't want to go search up matches on YouTube, or you don't want to go to like event hubs or like a third party source, or like you just have no idea what to do with this character, even if like you go to training mode and you hit their buttons and their specials, and you're like, I'm still not exactly sure what their game plan is. Like, these character guides are a good snapshot glance of like they'll give you like a brief text description of like how about this character. Hey, this character, these buttons are really good for anti-airing. What you really want to do at mid-range with these like you want to use these buttons for like pokes, and like it'll give you a chance like, hey, you want to try these out? Try like these very basic like commands and game plan out. So like when I was looking at the character guide for Manon, like that really helped me out. Because like, oh, crouch heavy punch is her main anti-air tool. But if you want to go resort to her special move, these are the special moves that are good anti-airs as well, which are a little bit more risky. But but her crouch heavy punch really, here are ways to like hit confirm into like her hit grab. Here are ways to like these are the buttons like for mid range pokes, and you really want to like you're leaning on them because they have really good priority, and and it'll definitely give you like a good like description of like what the situations are for like each of like your special moves are. So like for example, Manon has like quarter circle back move, but like on her kicks, but each of them do something very different. So her light quarter circle will be like a kind of like a split spinning move, which is really good for low profiling and like calling out sweeps, while her medium kick extension of that is a good like combo ender, and then her heavy punch is like is a quick overhead on that, and that's really helpful of like just letting you know of like, okay, these are like the use case scenarios for each of these buttons on these specials. So like you don't have to like kind of scratch your head of like why like how do I make that, what's the practical use of this from a snapshot glance. And I think that's really helpful. I really like that they have like those little character guides, and obviously you'll have the combo trials for each character as well, like in other fighting games. But I think if there's one cool thing about this game that's like a real like standout that I hope more fighting games do in the future, in terms of like single player trading style content for newcomers, it's those snapshot character guides that don't take up too much time, and they're very quick, concise, straight to the point, and very informative.
Outside of this, the RPG mode, the single player mode, I presume since the full release of this game, we're recording this on June 3rd, game fully released just yesterday. I assume you guys have just been playing standard versus matches since then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even touch the single player content.
So which characters are you guys playing so far? I'm curious.
Chun-Li and DJ.
Why am I not surprised you're playing DJ, Chow?
What? Come on.
I'm kind of interested in learning DJ too. Right now, I've kind of been sticking to Manon because she's one of the new characters.
Oh,
I'm interested in
God.
one. Uh-huh.
Look, I'm playing as JP, who I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm on a high horse here because he is definitely stinky, but fucking hate Manons. God.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
All my
Manon is
friends play
not.
Manon for some reason.
Manon's not, like her game plan is crazy in this game, especially if you let her metal up. Oh man! But throughout World Tour mode, I was using Ken's moveset for the most part. I need to get used to like modern Ken because the last time I really played Ken was Street Fighter 4, and Street Fighter 4 Ken is a very, very, very different character than Street Fighter 6 Ken. Because now he still has his Hadouken, his Tatsu, his Shoryuken, but he's very more about his kick specials now. The way like his basic game plan is and his approaches. So he's a much different character than like being like kind of like a standard Shoto, which is cool, but I just have to wrap my head around and I have time to like get better with Ken. But there are other characters I want to try out. Like I tried Lily out. She seems really fun. She's a gremlin. She's a goblin, man. She's a gorilla.
I've seen some Kimberly players online, and she looks like a lot of fun. She does not look like a standard Street Fighter character in her game plan, though. She is very different.
Yeah, like even though she shares some familiarity with the guy, she seems to be her own character overall, which is very cool.
I think that's the character that I'm most terrified of fighting of right now. Like, a very good Kimberly is just a menace in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm there's a lot of characters I want to try out. They all seem really interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how this game plays out and like how people feel about it, because it's not even just like new characters and returning characters of what they can do, right? It's the core fighting game system of this game is very different from like how you would approach a normal fighting game because of the drive system.
Oh, I love the drive system.
Yeah, the drive system is really cool. Yeah, so to explain for Brian, for other people who don't know, is like in a standard fighting game, you have your health bar and you have your super bar. Your super bar, like in old Street Fighter 2, you would fill it up and then all the way, and then you can use a super. In this game, you can fill it up to 3 times, so you can gain up to like 3 stocks of that super. And each of your supers that you can do, each character has 3 supers, like I mentioned earlier. Each of them take up a different amount of like stocks of that. So you have one that consumes 1 stock, one that consumes 2, and the other that consumes all 3 of the stocks that you saved of that. But that's the only thing you can use that super bar for, is those supers. Unlike other fighting games where you would use like the super bar for like EX attacks, for example. That's all gone. All those other systems are like relegated to this new system called the drive system in this game. And these are like, there's a separate bar underneath your health bar, which are like little pips. So like you'll have like the 8 different pips, small pips underneath your health bar, and these basically dictate a lot of like what you can do offensively and defensively. For example, if you want to do those EX attacks, that consumes drive gauge. If you wanted to block in this game, every time you block, it'll take a little bit of drive gauge away every time you block. When you have there's a universal parry system in this game where you can actually hold down to parry if you aren't good at timing it. Though there are perfect parries as well, where if you parry an attack and like kind of like absorb it, you'll gain back drive gauge. If you let this drive gauge deplete, it'll put you in a state called burnout state. And burnout state means you can no longer parry, you can no longer do EX attacks, and the properties of moves that are coming that you're taking from opponents are like they're better. Um, they're more favorable towards your opponent because you're in this burnout state. So, for example, like a medium kick from an opponent, like the amount of um the amount of time like you're in block stun because of that medium kick is longer now because you're in burnout state. And so you can't really punish it because you're in burnout state because it takes so much to like kind of just block it from on. Now there's also a nasty thing about this drive gauge and its burnout state. There's this new system in this game called drive impact. And drive impact is basically the default binding for it is when you press both uh, heavy punch and heavy kick at the same time, your character will lunge forward with an attack, and like it's kind of like, and you'll see like a lot of colors on screen as they're about to attack you, and there's super armor properties on this attack, meaning like you cannot, unless you hit them out of it very very fast with like consecutive attacks, you can't normally hit them out of it. You can throw them out of it if your reactions are good. You can parry the attack and like punish them, or you can like if your reactions are good, you can respond with a drive impact on your own. When you drive impact a character and it hits them, they'll crumple. So that means you can like pretty much follow it up with whatever you want, because it leaves them wide open when you hit them. If they block it, they'll get lunged back, and they cannot punish the that drive impact when they get lunged back because you've already recovered and they were away. So punishing these drive impacts, you have to be very proactive. You can't just like simply block them and expect to punish them. Or like now, if you get hit with this, if you block this drive impact and your back is facing the corner, the edge of the screen, you will actually hit your back will hit the wall as you're being lunged back, and they can like get basically a free hit on you or a big attack on you because your back hit the wall, so you're like kind of like wall splatted for a brief second, and so like they can open up you up defensively. Even though you block the attack, they can still open you up defensively because of that. Now, if this happens to you, whether you when you're burnout state, you'll be put in stun. So that's there's no stun meter in this game. You'll just be when you're in burnout state and you block the drive impact and you're against the wall and you hit that wall, you're stunned, and then you can just like they can do whatever they want to you. So this is what makes it different from most fighting games where you have to think about not only like your health, your super meter, but also like this drive gauge that kind of impacts your performance offensively and defensively. And you can see obviously both you and your opponent can see each other's drive gauges. So you kind of make calculated decisions on the fly of like, how do I want to approach this character and kind of force them to like if they're playing too defensively, they're gonna get burnt out. So they have to make a play to no matter what to prevent that. So you can't just like simply turtle up and block everything. You really have to like be proactive, both offensively and defensively, to manage that drive gauge effectively. And I think that's one of the scary things, and that's one of the coolest things about this game. Like being in the corner in this game is very nasty. Like imagine like in a fighting game, like it's already overwhelming to have your back against the corner, but like hey, you could at least block and like react to throws and like block overheads. But this one's like, oh, I also have to look out for another thing that might open me up because even if I block in the corner, I could still be punished for it.
What do the what do Street Fighters 4 and 5 have? Did they just have the stun gauge instead of a drive gauge?
In Street Fighter 3, they have a stun meter, and they also have parries, but like the parries were very tight. Like there's not something you can hold down. You have to like basically press forward on like like maybe 2 to 3 frames before like an attack would hit you, and then like obviously there's a perfect parry in that as well. So, but the parry window was very very tight in Street Fighter 3, but also exploitable as well. If you got really good with it, and it had a stun meter that you can visibly see. So if you see that In Street Fighter 3, you can like play around like combos that, and like some characters like and their supers like made use of that. So one of like Ryu's supers in Third Strike was like it didn't do a lot of damage if it hit, but it did a lot of stun meter damage, and there's like a whole play style surrounding that where like you basically do combos to get them into a guaranteed stun because of that stun meter. Um, Street Fighter 4 had the focus attack, so you hold down the two medium punch and medium kick in that, and that's sort of like the drive impact that you see in 6, where like you hold it down, but you do it manually, and then you can absorb an attack, and then you can like fire it off and like do like a slow counter attack to that. But the main use of focus attacks in Street Fighter 4 over the long run competitively was you would double tap forward to do a focus attack dash cancel, which also exists here in Street Fighter 6, where you can also like hold down parry and then double tap um, forward and do like a drive rush, where like it's not exactly like drive attack or focus attack dash cancel, but it different properties look sort of similar, which is what I'll say. And like that, you can also cancel out of like certain normal attacks in Street Fighter 6 that'll give you that drive rush property. So there were different, and also in Street Fighter 3 and Street Fighter 4, you could do EX attacks more easily because those expended your super meter in them. So there was no drive gauge that dictated that. So yeah, they were pretty different from how Street Fighter 6 approaches it, which really um, redefines the whole thing. So like in Street Fighter 6, you have to be more conscientious about when you use those overdrive EX attacks because they take up a lot of your drive meter. So you have to start weighing like, is it worth it to do an overdrive attack or EX attack here? At the expense of like this amount of drive meter that I have left. There might be times where like if I use an overdrive attack here, it'll put me in burnout state. Do I want to risk that? While in like previous games, you'll be like, I don't care like if I expend a little bit of my super meter to do this EX attack because I can get the super meter back very fast, and the pros and cons on weighing whether you should do like an EX attack to super drive meter is like it's almost always in EX attacks' favor because of the properties of the EX attacks in that game.
What did
It was
Street
even
Fighter 5 have?
oh boy. Chow, you remember better than me because I've it's been a long time since I played Street Fighter 5. I know they had selectable the V triggers and the in that game.
It didn't come early. It came around season 3.
Oh yeah, the V triggers were like what was it at launch for Street Fighter 5? Like what the systems were.
You just have V trigger, and the dumbest thing they did in launch was there was 8 frames of delay for everything that you do, whether you're playing
Yeah,
single player or even offline or even online, because apparently they tried to cater to the online, so everything had an 8 frame delay
yeah,
on things,
it felt bad,
and
but
people just kept abusing certain supers that are like nearly unreactable with an 8 frame delay, right?
yeah, but the V triggers were from what I remember was like it would the only ones I can really remember is like the collies and God I can't remember like where there's like characters basically gain a resource like the V gauge in that game, and once they like fill it up or get to a certain threshold, they can activate something called V trigger, and that would have different things for different characters. Like there's no universal be like, oh, V trigger always does this for a character. It's like it's character specific on like what V trigger does.
Yeah, it's more like a combat mechanic in a way, but
Hmm.
your character gains like a new move when you have a full bar, and that can change the entire momentum of the game, right? So, for example, I use Karen. She gets Grin Ken, which is like Crimson Fists, and what that does is like she has like this Rekka move where you can hit like twice. Then the third move can be anything. It could be like a throw. It could be like a reverse overhead or something, and it just confuses the shit out of your opponents, and that can use be like to instantly come back from a losing game, right?
Yeah,
So-
and then that's totally different from like something. It's a character like Nikali, because Nikali in that game when he V-triggered, he'd like go into like a permanent like super like not super powered, but like a powered up state, which like he would
He
like
becomes
when,
Super Saiyan God. His hair turns red.
yeah, he has a different appearance, and like in that alters like the properties of each of his like moves. So like that he becomes a much more devastating character once he enters V-trigger, because now his moves are all powered up because of this state, which is and that's gonna be different for every character.
Yeah,
as
then
well.
to explain it even further, so when they added the second V trigger, that was in like season 3. So Karen, you had to pick. You're forced to pick either one. You can't just get both. And
Yeah, it's V-Trigger 1 or V-Trigger 2 that they added.
yeah, so like when they added the second one, Karen gets a counter, but the counter one is actually very strong. But at the same time, is that when you activate it, people know that you're going to use the counter, right? Now they know that you have it, so it's not a moment of surprise anymore, right? So I feel like that kind of demeans what it's supposed to be used for, so I don't use the second one as much. Yeah.
Chow, how do you think Street Fighter 6 will stack up versus Josh implied that Street Fighter 5 was not well received when it was released. I'm not really sure about earlier than that. Street Fighter 6 has done very well on Steam. It's broken sales records. Do you think this is a flash in the pan, or do you think that Capcom has really kind of succeeded in making this game approachable to a wide audience?
I think they did the right thing with this game, because in Street Fighter 5, even though I love the game, it did the game no favors, because you have a terrible online with terrible netcode, and the game is competitive only. There was no single player content. I know, like, for me, I don't play fighting games for single player content, but there are players that, when they buy a game, they expect to have a package, and they don't get any of that. And so I feel like this game did everything to do to correct what was wrong with 5, and I don't think it will fall off. I think there's like a strong following, and it will just kind of grow from there.
Yeah, I think it's the most promising start a fighting game could wish to have. I think they really fired on all cylinders here.
It
For
also
this game,
helps that since it's crossplay,
right?
you're always going to have people to fight against.
Yes, I think that's a big part of it. Is like not only does it have like netcode that feels good, but also it being crossplay, it just means the world for everyone. You never have to worry about like, oh, what
PlayStation is
what's
exclusive, guys. Like
what
5, good idea.
well, but yeah, like where are you buying the game? Where are you going to be at? Like because you want to play with your friends, right? You have to worry about like traditionally you'd be like, well, I guess I have to go get the PS version if you're going to get the PS if I want to play with you. Now with this one right off the bat, you don't have to worry about that. Like I remember I had to buy Guilty Gear Strive both on PlayStation and PC at launch because I wanted to play with friends.
That's the main reason I didn't pick up Strive at launch, is that like half of my friend group wanted to play on PlayStation, half of my friend group wanted to play on PC. I didn't want to commit to any platform because I was going to leave people out. Like I wasn't going to be able to play with them. Like now it's not a problem, but that was like what, 2 years after the game came out?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
why do you play now after they nerfed Tatsukeki? Damn.
Yeah.
It's just
But it's-
ridiculous how long that took so long. Like I get it, it's extremely challenging. I think Capcom just like they put their best foot forward, like as best of a
Alright.
foot as you could get.
All right, one thing I'm going to say about this though.
hmm
Street Fighter team is underneath the Monster Hunter team now. This has
Mhm.
crossplay. Monster
Mhm.
Hunter 6 better fucking have crossplay.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Those are facts. Is Exo Primal crossplay? I don't remember.
I think it's crossplay between Xbox and PC at least.
Wait, between Xbox and what?
PC.
PC.
Oh, not so PlayStation is just on its own.
Let me check.
Okay, because that's the next Capcom release, and I was
Oh yes,
wondering.
it is crossplay.
Okay, cool. So there you go.
But yeah,
Yeah.
never sign up for exclusive, even if taking that check is not worth it.
Okay, what I'm interested is Dragon's Dogma 2. Do you think Pawns will be crossplay?
I hope so. If it's tied to your Capcom ID and you're just uploading that like in the first game, I'm pretty sure there's no reason why it wouldn't be crossplay.
I hope so. That'd be funny.
Any other final concluding thoughts on your guys' initial impressions of the biggest release of the week? Not quite an RPG, Street
If
Fighter
it wasn't
6?
If it wasn't for Zelda, this would be my game of the year.
I love it so far. All I think about lately is like how much I want to play more with friends, and there's something about this game that like really like pushes me and drives me to learn it, because I think I'm so fascinated with like the flow of matches this game, and like how it really switches up like what I think of a traditional fighting game and what you do in a traditional fighting game.
This will
Um,
be what gets me to start going to locals again.
Oh, that's awesome. Support your locals if you can, for sure.
We still got half a near. What is anything more bigger than this? You would think.
16, Starfield,
Yeah.
Pikmin 4. Most
There's
people
the
won't care about Pikmin 4, but I will, damn it.
there's still a lot of big video games this year, Chow.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's already been I think if nothing else came out this year, I would already be happy with what's released just within the first like 6 months of this year.
Yeah, there's still a lot, man. There's still a lot I need to get back to, man. My backlog this year has been brutal.
I need to finally finish Octopath 2. I'm so close. I've been like picking at it every like couple weeks, and it's like, man.
You're a busy man.
But yeah, I mean,
And I guess yeah, I guess I can say now I'm not going to be on the podcast next week just because I'm going to be so busy with Summer Games Fest stuff.
yeah. I mean, good luck, and stay safe and stay hydrated.
Yeah.
Wait, what's LA gonna be like temperature wise during around that time?
Let me check.
Hot.
Because it's that time of the year. It's June in LA, so it's like, well, I know lately it's been not as hot as usual, but I still don't know how it is.
Yeah, I have no idea what it's like down there at the moment because for the last like basically month, I've been at my parents' place in Idlewild, which is like further inland and like mountain. So
And so
it's been good.
we're recording this on the 3rd. Summer's Games Fest is on the 8th, right? The actual like the stage show. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Well, according to Weather Underground, next weekend in LA is going to be topping up at around like 70 degrees. So it's going to be a perfect temperature.
Oh damn, that sounds perfect. Yeah, so I guess I didn't realize. I mean, we talked previously on this podcast, like, here comes June, here comes not E3. We've got Summer Games Fest, we've got the Xbox Showcase and Starfield Direct on the 11th. So I guess that's next Sunday. So that'll be the day after we record next week's podcast. But Summer Game Fest is the 8th. We have a few other publishers that are putting their hats into the rings for later in June. So it's probably going to be a pretty steady stream of new announcements for the next few weeks. So I'm excited. And speaking like Josh has stated, speaking of being kind of in the midst of so many games and amid a lot of backlogs, last week on the podcast, I talked a little bit about Miasma Chronicles. I still haven't quite put enough time into that to have concluding thoughts on it. Still making my way through Zelda. But one of the releases this week that I had to play and had to try out at least a little bit was, guys, it's real. You can play it. The System Shock remake did actually release. It is actually playable, and I decided to put a few hours into it.
Hey, it's actually real. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing good things about it. So what you have to say?
So I'm not that far. I've only completed the medical bay, like the first map of the area.
Oh,
And I have played a handful of games, several of which that have pointed to the original System Shock as inspiration or like the spiritual predecessor. Like I played BioShock, I played Prey, I played some other immersive sims, but I don't have experience playing System Shock, so I cannot comment in terms of how faithful or not faithful this is, whether or not I'm looking at a mechanic that acts as it was back in 1990. What did this release for? 1994, early 1990s.
oh yeah.
So I can only speak to this remake from a very fresh perspective, but knowing that I've enjoyed immersive sims in the past. I haven't actually played like an immersive sim, and I know some people call that a fake genre, but whatever, since Prey in 2017.
I gotta think of like if there's like any like big significant ones since Prey, because I was thinking was Prey like the last one that I can really think of in this genre? I'm sure
Right.
there have been like indie wise, but
Mhm.
like notable titles that like mainstream that hit the mainstream.
So in a lot of ways, the System Shock remake does feel old school in a good way.
Mhm.
It has a very, very brief opening, and then you're kind of in the gameplay proper within like 7 minutes, 8 minutes. So
Awesome.
the game is entirely first person. So and you are an unnamed hacker, and the game opens up and you're trying to, and the story is actually very light. It's not very overwrought, so a lot of this you just have to kind of glean from the context clues. You're trying to like steal or hack into a business's software. I believe it is like the Tri-Optimum Corporation, to access some sort of neural implant. It's like this game takes place in like 2072, near future, et cetera, et cetera. But you're caught as you're trying to hack through, and you're arrested, and then you end up being taken to this place called the Citadel, which is like a space station orbiting, I believe, Saturn, being run by this Trioptimum. It's your usual cyberpunk dystopian big corporate entity thing. And this character named, I believe it's Edward Diego, is like, hey, I noticed that you tried to hack our servers and get access to this neural link, this new implant, some new commodity that they're trying to sell. If you help me, I'll give you access to this. What I want you to do, this is Edward Diego talking to you, the player character, is I want you to the Citadel is this big giant like space station that's being operated by an AI called Shodan. And even those of us like me who have never played System Shock know like at least of Shodan as like it's the like the Cortana-esque AI female avatar art that it's like the logo of the game effectively. And Edward is basically like, hey, I want you to disable Shodan's like ethical locks, because I want to be able to harness it for my own purposes. And it's not exactly clear what, but he wants you basically to unleash this AI. And you agree. You don't really have a say in the matter. You just agree. And then you are put under, and you wake up 6 months later, and everything's gone to shit. I think it's 6 months later. You're on the Citadel. Shodan has run amok. Edward Diego is nowhere to be found. All of the inhabitants of this thing are now replaced with like cyborgs and mutants. And Shodan basically seems to think of herself now as some sort of like god creature, and you try to have to figure out what's going on. And then like within 8 minutes, you have your pipe wrench, you're in the medical bay, and you're basically set off to like go figure out what the hell happened and how to get out of here and how to deal with this. Very much like the typical sort of like environmental storytelling, where you're going to get audio logs, you're going to get notes, you're going to find passcodes and in like diary entries and locked doors, and you're gonna find like one-way passages, you're gonna find rooms and be like, how do I access that? So very much your usual sort of usual sort of flair for the like the immersive sim. I'm trying to avoid using the Prey comparisons, because I know I'm kind of going backwards in that fashion, but
Yeah.
that's for my personal experience, just my gaming
I mean,
history. That's
a
where
lot
I'm
of
coming
people will
from.
share that perspective, you know. So I think that's totally okay. I mean, just the System Shock is not like something that like you need to have played the old game to like appreciate. I think it's something that we can view under different lenses, and definitely, I assume most modern lenses will be like, hey, I enjoyed Prey, so I'm definitely going to give this a shot. They're like way back when, like it was a more novel thing at the time, and now you have to think about like what modern advances can we make this feel fresh again, but in a way that doesn't completely that isn't like completely detached or unfaithful to that original experience and sensation.
I'm sure that there is some quality of life features that I'm like taking for granted and not even thinking of,
Mhm.
that people who played the original are like, well, it didn't work that way back in the 90s. That's just, you're getting thrown a bone for that. But I can't even parse what that would be without research. I will say
Right.
though that if I had to describe this game in like a single word, it's diegetic. And what I mean by that is, yes, this game has like an inventory menu, and it's the usual sort of inventory where it's a grid, and certain items take up certain amounts of space, and you have to make sure they have enough space to pick up whatever you want. You can pick up anything from like laptops to old like potato chip bags to stethoscopes and whatever else you want, coffee mugs. And some items are useful, like ammo or weapons or health items, but other items you can just like recycle into like general scrap and then end up using in other places. But what I mean by diegetic is that there are a lot of aspects of this game that do not take place in menus, even though they could have. And what I mean by that is, for instance, you might come across a vending machine, and in order to use the vending machine, you don't just click on it and then pull up a menu. You actually have to interact with like the coin slot and put in your credit. Then you got to click on the vending machine what you want, and then it'll dispense it and you got to pick it up. Or you have a recycler and you actually have to like open up the bay of the recycler. You face it and you click on it. You slot in whatever items you want to recycle, and then on the recycler itself, you have to find the switch like in the world space, in the game space, to press to run the recycler and then pick up your resulting scrap or your resulting credits. Whenever you find a corpse on the floor, you can click the corpse to figure out if it's carrying any items or anything. But it might also have a weapon next to the corpse or an audio log next to the corpse, and it's not just all binned under like loot the corpse. You have to actually look at it, observe, find it, and pick it up. So it's like stuff like that I feel is like, if this game was not a remake and was made today, I feel like it would be a little bit more compartmentalized, where it would all just be binned in like some sort of auto loot or some sort of detective vision or something, and there's none of that. Well, there's a feature that you unlock. It's called like sensor array or something, that gives you some sort of very limited detective vision sort of capability, but it's actually built in game as like it uses your actual energy resource and things like that. So it's balanced pretty well. There are puzzles that involve like rerouting power. You'll find like a circuit board on the wall, and when you go up to the circuit board, it's not like it pulls up a different menu like a different mini game. You like, while you're in the world space, you have to face the circuit board, and you can flip the switches and unplug it and reroute the power. And it does this without ever like loading screens or taking the camera control away from you. Or anything like that. So it's really, I hate to use this word because of the genre name I've been using, but it's really immersive. You're not pulled out of the moment. It doesn't pause like while you're interacting with any of these objects. You can be attacked while doing it. So you have to be able to be ready for that at any time. And then as I finished up on the medical bay and I accessed the elevator to go to the next floor, which I believe is like the research wing, for some reason, despite being conditioned to what I just described, I was totally expecting like a loading screen to be like, all right, I finished this floor, on to the next floor. Nope, there wasn't any. I just took the elevator up. There was some silly kind of semi-humorous elevator music as a bunch of mutants attacked you, and then you're on the research wing, seamlessly. And of course, it's not 100% seamless because I'm sure all those assets loaded in while you're on the elevator, but it was disguised well enough where you weren't ever pulled away in terms of having the camera control removed from you or literally a loading screen with a prompt or anything like that.
It makes me wonder if they ever plan on like releasing like a VR version of this remake down the line, because I think everything you described, like it's very insistent on not having a different menu screen when you're interacting with something. It's very insistent on always like keeping you in the moment without like ever taking your view away from like the world itself and what you're seeing from like a first person perspective. Like what trying to emulate the first person experience from the get go. Like I wonder if they do like maybe having VR support down the line for it.
This game would, as someone who hasn't dabbled in VR that much since like 2017, since like the age of like the HTC Vive, this game does feel like it'd be really well suited for VR. Like even when you're pulling up like your menu, or it does have like a pause menu, so you can pause the game.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh no, you're fucked.
But like if you're pulling up your inventory or you're looking at your map, that doesn't pause the game, at least not under the standard configuration. Maybe there's an option where you can change that. But like if you're pulling up your map to try to get your bearings, or if you're trying to like, oh, I've got too many items in my inventory, let me do some item management, like the game doesn't pause. You have to take care of and make sure you're in a safe spot before you do that, which can be frustrating if, for instance, you run out of ammo and you don't have your melee weapon equipped. You got to go into your menu while you're being attacked to get your melee weapon equipped, and to be able to do that. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It's inconvenient, but it kind of inconveniences you in a way where it requires you just like to strategize and think and plan. So I don't think of it as like, it's not doing something that I wish it didn't in that sense.
I'm interested in hearing more about like as you play it, because there are definitely like my memories of playing the original are fuzzy, but there are like very like small instances of like there are different like puzzle solutions that were like, man, it would be a pain in the ass if I didn't like remember to do that in this game. Like there's definitely like instances where like this feels like a pain in the ass, but that's because I forgot to do something small that would have made it a lot like more more convenient at certain parts of that game. Like I think it's just like it's one of those things where you like I'd have to like pay attention to like what you can interact with in the environment, as you're playing through that game.
Yeah, and sometimes it's
Does it highlight what you can interact with, or is it like you're just fooling around?
no, it doesn't. At least
Okay.
so the ability that I recently unlocked is called, let's see, sense around, which uses your energy to sense around you to find interactable objects. I've used it a little bit, but it's not as easy as like hold tab and all interactable objects are highlighted. You actually have to like I've revisited rooms that I'd already explored and taken out the enemies in, and like, oh crap, there was an audio log on the desk that I just completely ignored. And then you listen to it, and that audio log will say, oh, the I need you to dump the body of the botched medical exam in the maintenance tunnel north of the bay, or something like that. And this game doesn't do anything. And this is I don't want to say that this is like super novel, because I know a lot of games do this, but when you learn like a passcode or you learn a new piece of information from an email or a note or an audio log, it doesn't commit the game doesn't commit it to memory for you. You've got to memorize it or refer back to the media to find it. And so I'm at the end of the armory, and it's like, oh, here's the logbook, or sorry, the passcode, and I don't remember what this is. Let me go back into my media file and figure out what it was.
I definitely needed a notepad like to play the original. I do remember
Yeah.
that. Where like yeah, there are definitely spots where like okay, this game will be kind of mean to you in that aspect. So
And then even a little bit more simply, there was this lift that I couldn't figure out how to activate. And it was just because the switch on the wall wasn't where I was expecting it to be. So that was just me like not being observant, but like you actually have to kind of understand the game space and look at if I was going to reside in this part of the station, what would make sense? Oh, here's the lift switch. I actually have to face this and press my interact key to use this lift. It's not doled out for you. And that seems like, I know that's a low bar. If I had just used my eyes, I would have seen it. But that's the sort of things where you have to be observant, where I'm sure I've walked into a room and on the left side of the room, potentially, there was an assault rifle that I just missed because the game doesn't point it out for you. It doesn't highlight it. It doesn't do anything for it. You just got to be observant and find it, whether it's supplies or switches or information. And for me, I think I'm enjoying this game not because System Shock is doing it at a way that no other game has, but I just think this style of game has become a bit rarer, at least in the AAA space. I'm sure there's lots of indie or like AA titles that kind of evoke the same sort of feel. But man, for me, I'm just like, man, I guess I've been longing for this sort of game, but didn't really realize it. It's very narrative light. It kicks you into the action right away. There's not a lot of overwrought dialogue.
it's basically a toy box. Like you're thrown into a playground, and you have like all these little things you can like kind of play around with. But there's like nothing overhead that tells you must do this to like get to the next place. You're just
Right.
kind of like fooling around with like what you have on hand, and like you'll get the occasional note that says, "Oh, I kind of did this," or you kind of like there are things of interest that are written on those notes, but you're not like mandated to always like always go there immediately.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so those are my initial impressions, and very, very strong. I can see why. I don't want to speak like an expert because I'm only honestly like 2.5 hours in. It's very, very chill, despite the fact that it's kind of putting you on edge. I wouldn't call it horror, but it's creepy and it's moody. But it's also very chill. Like I could see like playing this game like late at night with like a warm beverage or an alcoholic beverage, whatever you want. And just kind of really vibing with it. Kind of piecing together your little scraps of information, figuring out your objective. There's a little bit of resource management. Oh yeah, I guess I should speak on that just a tiny bit. I know immersive sim has kind of been treated like RPG adjacent, and it's kind of like that. Like your items and your weapons will have stats. Like for instance, you start out with your lead pipe, and then eventually you get a wrench, and you can actually pull up the menu and say, okay, the wrench has lower reach but more damage. So it has a few like statistical based mechanics like that, and it has some resource management in terms of health packs, ammo, things like that. But that's all typical first person shooter or first person gaming in general. So it's not really an RPG, but it has some of that same sort of flavor to it, uh, in my opinion. But enjoying it a lot, and I'm glad I just decided to like almost tease. I won't say glad, but we've been kind of teasing this game a little bit early in the year because of the delay and how long it's been in development. But I'm actually like, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm glad that I'm deciding to like actually give it a fair shake and kind of I'm using the remake as an opportunity to like fill in like this game is a cult classic that a lot of people, you know, back in the day really um took a, you know, adhered to pretty well. And I don't know, like it'll be interesting to play through this and then see some impressions from those who played the original to discuss some of the finer details about how faithful it is or isn't, or if it made changes for the better, or if it made changes for the worse. Because right now I'm just unfortunately just blind to all of that. But
That's fine. I mean, in my opinion, you don't need to know.
yeah,
You just enjoy the game.
yeah. Ignorance is bliss, and if you know, if I'm not aware of how it was, but I'm enjoying what's presented for me now, then that's all that really matters. But yeah, the last game that we have listed here before we go into a relatively light news section is a game that James wanted to talk about last week, but we were had a lot of other games on the docket, and we knew that this week we'd probably have space for it. And that is Destiny 2. Now, for Destiny 2, I've been on the fringes of this game. I know that James talked about a month ago the new Lightfall expansion. Plus, I saw that it had a very brief
ago. Like
it was more than a month ago.
It came out in like the end of February.
Wow, damn, time's flying.
So like 3 months ago.
And then it had a brief appearance, of course. Now Bungie is a Sony studio, of course, at the PlayStation showcase. But you said you wanted to talk about Destiny 2 new updates today, or actually last week. So tee us up. Is this like post Lightfall, like seasonal content?
Yes. So basically,
Okay.
the way that Destiny 2 works is that even though you don't pay a subscription for it, it's basically a subscription MMO where every couple of months you get a major patch that adds in new story content, new like gameplay stuff, and basically just moves the story forward. Uh, Realistically, if you're actually playing Destiny, you probably get the $100 edition every year, and then you just don't have to worry about paying for anything else for the rest of the year. Does make it kind of hard to catch up because unlike other MMOs, you do have to buy everything separately. It's not just okay, you buy the base game, then the latest expansion, you have everything. But anyways,
maybe you just stated this, but like to play the content that just came out, do you have to have Lightfall? Like, do you buy into Lightfall?
You need to have Lightfall, and you need to have the season pass for the current season, which is Season of the Deep.
Gotcha.
Now,
Okay.
what I said is that most people that actively play Destiny probably buy the premium edition of an expansion, which comes with everything that they need for the entire year without worrying about it.
Gotcha.
So because we got sent a code for the premium edition, that means that I have the other 3 seasons for the game besides the first season, which was Season of Defiant. So that's Season of the Deep, and then there's 2 more that are going to be coming before the final main Destiny 2 expansion next year in the final shape. So for this one, got a new sort of, not really a strike, which is like a kind of mission, but it's like something similar. Every week they're going to be adding a new one for a bit until they're like capped out on how many of the missions they're going to be adding. And you can do those on rotation for the weekly like missions and whatnot, and to level up the level for your season pass, see new aspects of the story and whatnot. One of the main things they added this season, in addition to the main content, is because it's an ocean themed like Season of the Deep affair. They added a fishing mini game, and like on a number of different planets in the game, there's like fishing spots that as you're doing like public events, as you're doing the seasonal event, you get these bait, you get bait that you can use to actually fish. There's like a bunch of different fish you can catch that, and there's like achievements for getting each of them. There's like something like 50 or 60 of them. There's like unique fish depending on the world you're fishing on. And then like there's different rarity fish, and the different rarities correspond with the rarities you can get for weapons and gear, and you can actually go back to the helm, which is this kind of hub area, and deposit any of the fish you got, and you'll actually be able to see the each of the unique fish that you've caught in that area throughout the season, like in
That's
an
so
aquarium thing.
weird.
Yeah.
How do you how do you fish in Destiny?
So basically, you go up to the fishing pool, you press E or whatever
Okay.
the interact button is on consoles, and then you see the fishing line, and when it like gets tugged and lights up, then you want to press the interact button again as quickly as possible, and the quicker you press it, the higher likelihood that you'll get a higher rarity fish.
Oh, okay. So it's like reaction based on like how quickly you can press the interact button at the
Yeah.
right time, huh?
Yeah, if you're too slow, you won't catch anything. You'll just have an empty hook. But it's not a guarantee you'll always get like the best quality if you do it immediately. It just increases the chance of getting a higher quality fish. And obviously, well, not obviously, one of the things that makes this fishing mini game kind of neat is that there's like a reason to do it besides
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like cooling down, like having some fun after like a raid session or whatnot.
So like, is it actually like
Every
viable
rare
to like get like like is it viable to like get raid ready in that game
I
to
wouldn't say
through
it's viable
fishing?
to get raid ready necessarily, but if you just want to try and get some different like gear rolls, because when you deposit the fish, you'll
Okay.
get gear equivalent to how many of each fish you had for the different rarities. So if you had a blue fish, you get a blue rarity gear. If you had a purple fish,
Oh, is this like a random roll?
yeah, it's a random roll.
Oh, that's funny.
We're actually, I think it might be based off of the seasonal loot table,
Okay.
but still, yeah.
It's like in a way, you're like using the fish that you caught as like almost like gotcha currency.
You can catch an exotic fish, and then you already know I got an exotic weapon waiting for me. You deposit it, and you get an exotic weapon or like gear item when you go to turn it in.
So, Chow, are we giving Destiny another shot, dude?
No way, man. I don't play first person shooter games, man.
You don't want to fish to gotcha?
No.
Well,
Like, can't you
so
play
in
Destiny
addition
third
to
person?
Wow.
Mm,
yes and no, some aspects are third person, some aspects are first person. Most of the time, it's first person.
Alright.
But yeah, in addition to that fun stuff, they also added in a new dungeon that is so that the new dungeon, Ghosts of the Deep, released at the same time, well, around the same time as the seasonal drop, but it's not included with the season. This is one of those things that I think a lot of people that even play Destiny now are really critical of. But basically, even if you have the season pass, even if you have Lightfall, in order to run this dungeon, which is basically a smaller 3-person raid, you have to buy it separately. You need to buy the dungeon key, or or it comes with the premium pass. But one of the things that's especially annoying is that it's either the dungeon key itself or the seasons themselves. They've raised the price of, and you can't buy seasons separately through like Steam or the PlayStation Store or like Xbox Live. You have to buy them in game using silver, which is the premium currency. And the thing is that they raised the price of the seasons to 1,200 silver, but the you can buy silver in increments of 500, 1,000, 2,000, or a little bit more than that. So
That
if you
feels like
just want to buy the
old school Xbox. Sorry to interrupt, but like
yeah,
that sounds like Microsoft points back when it's like you'd have to overspend your real world currency to get this awkward number of premium currency, and
yeah.
that just feels like I thought
Oh,
people
I'm
I thought
sure
we
that's
moved
where
away
they
from
learned.
that.
I'm sure that's where they learned it.
That just feels like a something designed in like 2008 or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a question since we have someone on the call here that's somewhat caught up with Destiny. I have a question.
Yeah.
In the recent PlayStation showcase, when they showed off Destiny trailer, why is Nolan North back in that game?
We don't know. So that's the final shape story content, which is 3 seasons from now.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
How do you know it's
any
3 seasons from now? Sorry.
because there's the rest
Like-
of this season and then the 2 more seasons for Lightfall, and then there's the season that will release alongside the final shape.
All right.
Wait, like when you get Lightfall, you already know how many seasons it's gonna be because they communicated that.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a season every 3 months about.
Okay.
So and expansions release once a year. So there's a season that drops with the expansion, and then there's 3 more seasons throughout the year, and then there's a season that drops with the next expansion.
Okay. So yeah, so it's on a cycle based, like predetermined.
Yeah. So when they say that it's a season, it really is a season of content.
Got it.
I think I got
Okay.
it.
Okay. So
I don't.
we'll find out in like a year.
It feels like, especially kind of laying it out, it feels a little bit grimy talking about Destiny 2's content cycle, but
That's how they built it for straight up. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's like from the ground up. It was always meant to be this way.
yeah. And again, I will say, if anyone listening ever wanted to get into Destiny, I'm sorry, but just buy the premium edition. Like, at an expansion launch when everything's on sale, just buy the previous expansions, get the premium edition. If you're serious about playing the game, it's much less headache. It saves you money in the long run. Because if you're serious about playing the game, you're going to want to play the seasons anyways because it has story content. And as I've mentioned in the past, once the next expansion comes out, like for now, like the seasonal content from Season of Defiance, which was the launch season for Lightfall, is still in the game. But come the final shape, Season of Defiance, Season of the Deep, and the other 2 seasons from Lightfall, all that content, or at least all of the story content, gone. You won't be able to access
I
it.
wonder how many people are still like picking up Destiny 2 as like a complete newcomer. Well, like I really wonder about what the what the rate of like new players are to that game like on a yearly basis is.
I would have to
Yeah.
think that it would have to be a focus for Bungie, because if every year 90% of everyone who's currently playing Destiny regularly continues, but 10% drop off, then they're just going to have a shrinking player base. So they got to be able to entice new players in somehow. This in the face of the content vaulting thing that we discussed ad nauseum back in February.
My bet is that they have a plan for after the final shape. It'll be a soft reboot, and they'll like make the argument that now is the best time to get into Destiny because
They'll remake Destiny after Destiny 2 and just call it Destiny.
They'll call it the
something
Destiny.
like that.
The Destiny. They'll call it the Destiny at first and then drop off the.
But yeah, anyways, so Chow, I was raiding in Destiny this last 2 weeks instead of raiding in 14
Damn.
because the
Don't worry.
the
I'm
I'm going into Party Finder this weekend, but I am terrified because there's like 4 or 5 different strats for P9S limit cut, and it's like, oh, this is gonna be a fucking nightmare.
You know what I hate about 14 is that people adapt terrible strats and they stick with it, and they refuses to adapt better strats.
Hell yeah!
I keep seeing people refer to this current like P9S JP strat as brain dead, and all I'm thinking is just use Cryo and Oppo, because at least if one half of the team is doing Cryo and the other half is doing Oppo, you're not going to kill each other because they're compatible strats.
They never learn.
Yeah, God. Anyways, going into the mines this weekend, that's the other reason I've been playing Street Fighter. I don't want to have to deal with Party Finder.
I can't wait to play more Street Fighter. When's this podcast gonna end?
Come on, guys, want to play? We end it right now. Just play
That's
it.
the times of the podcast.
But anyways, besides my issues with like monetization, like the new Destiny 2 update is like legitimately good. The story's off to an interesting start. The new dungeon is fantastic. probably the best one they've added to the game so far. So it's like I gotta admit that I probably wouldn't be enjoying the game as much if it wasn't for the fact that I have people that are like a consistent group of people that are willing to do the
Yeah,
raids
that's big.
and whatnot.
That's the reason why like the few times I went back and forth with Destiny 2 is because there was a consistent group that I was playing with.
Yeah, but it's like if you have a group of friends to play it with that can help get you into the game, I legitimately think Destiny 2 is one of the better MMOs out there. It just sucks if you don't, and you shouldn't even try. Anyways, on to the news.
Yep. So that was kind of a very interesting games talk section of the podcast, but I think that we got some interesting insights and impressions for all three titles, including Street Fighter 6, System Shock, and Destiny 2. We have a few other features that I went up on rpgsite.net about games that we'd spoken about previously on the last 2 or 3 episodes of the podcast. Like, for instance, we talked, was it last week, about Forspoken's new DLC? I won't rehash that conversation here, but after Adam and I finished the DLC for Forspoken in Tanta We Trust, Adam just decided, you know what we owe to the wider gaming world. We never wrote a Forspoken review, so Adam wrote a very late, belated Forspoken review. So you can read that up on the site, but it's going to be a lot of the same written impressions that we gave back in January for the base game, and more recently with the new DLC. Adam also wrote, this is actually a new release for this podcast, the review for the Etrian Odyssey Origins collection. So this is the re-release of the first 3 Etrian Odyssey games, the original versions, to PC and Switch.
He actually played through and beat all 1, 2, and 3 before that review went up. It just
not only that, but he did like super boss on hardest difficulty clear. He put in like 120 hours. I don't know if it was that much, but several hours. Games that Adam has already played, but he's like, it's on Steam now, so I got to play through it again, and I got to play it for real, no shortcuts. Adam has not recently, but in the past, on the yesteryear of the podcast, 2020, 2021 era, spoken highly about Etrian Odyssey, and is a series that he likes a lot. He thinks that this collection is a very smart and available option for those looking to get in the series. But he did say that even though Adam has wrote nearly 100 reviews up on the site and hardly would ever talk about price, because it's so subjective, he did call it out here as this is one of the more odd pricing strategies of recent memory. All 3 games are available individually for $40 each, or as a bundle for $80. So it's like, I think both is kind of overpriced, but again, it is very subjective. But if you're interested in the collection, you're looking at $80 for games that originally came out on the DS, and that would be if you're not even sure you would like all 3 of them, and from the same publisher, where you can get like Persona 3 and 4 on PC for like $20 a pop for the price of one Etrian Origins game.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I think the thing that I am most interested about, like, I hope they share this, the development team shares this, but like the reason that this Origins collection, but not like a big part of the reason this was even a thing was like feedback on how to basically make the next Etrian game that doesn't have a DS in mind. They're like kind of like they're like at this crossroads of like, oh my god, how are we gonna make a dungeon crawler without dual screens? And they're looking for feedback like, do you like what we did with this Origins collection? Like there's like two modes or like perspectives where you can like play this Origins collections at that right. You have like your standard full screen mode, just like you can like have the whole screen be like your dungeon like perspective and like be more menu driven, or you can have it more split where like you always have like it kind of adopts like like what you see on the DS screens, but all on like one screen split off into like 3 separate parts, where like one half of the screen is like the you would see the dungeon in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and then the other half is like your dungeon making map tools, where like, and then like half of that is like the dungeon that you're actually traversing, like a grid, and then like the top half is like the little icons you can use to like kind of fill out that map, which was an really interesting. And I wonder like how people feel about that, like whether people. Well, I'm kind of interested to see like how people respond to it and what their um what feedback they'll get out of that.
Yeah, Adam
I'm
said that he
curious.
played it with the map pretty much pulled up to full size, so it sits on the right side of the screen his entire time. But he said he had a monitor that was big enough to do that, where if you're playing this, for instance, like on Steam Deck, that might make the visual real estate too small. But there's
Yeah,
a
good
couple
point.
options at least. And he also did make sure that there's a lot went into this re-release that probably could go underappreciated. But like this is a DS game. So a screen that was, I think he puts it in here, like 256 by 192 pixels. And now it's got to be playable on PC up to like 4K. And so like how much did they have to like rework the art, make sure that everything works with that level of like pixel density in terms of like the menuing and allowing for new cursor support? And he basically said that despite the pricing still being kind of a weird anomaly, that the amount of effort put into the port was well appreciated, and he said he had a really good time with it.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, I mean, it's bad. Like Etrian is like even though like in any less like crowded like gaming space, like I think this would be like a more significant like thing to like kind of appreciate. But like since like there's so many releases, like you're kind of like back and forth, like incoming big games coming, and like a whole shitload of like games like on our plate here. But like Etrian finally getting out of like the DS prison, is
Right.
pretty fucking cool.
And you don't have to spend a fortune getting the DS ports.
Like,
Well,
like
what we were
these
talking about,
games,
you're still paying a small fortune to get the remasters.
but these games are like great. Like just
Mm.
having them like preserved is awesome.
Another review that went up on the site that we talked about previously on the podcast briefly is the May release of Fuga Melodies of Steel 2. James was able to play through the game and write up his formal final thoughts on Fuga 2 and put those up this week as well.
Yep. Good game. I could definitely understand how some people would maybe play through this and think it's a bit too similar to the first game. But I feel like it's one of the. I feel like iterative sequels can be a good thing, and I definitely feel like Fuga 2 is a good example of that.
Mhm.
Like it really kind of expects you to be familiar with the gameplay loop from the first one and just builds upon it without necessarily like reinventing everything.
Mm-hmm.
I do think though that Fuga 3 needs to be a more like significant like maybe reinvention, especially with some of the stuff they're teasing with the secret movie. So hopefully they give it the time it deserves. Who knows though? Who knows?
And the last review that we have up on rpgsite.net is another new release that is coming out on the 6th here in the West, and that is Loop 8
Coop
Summer
8.
of Thanks for preempting me, Chow. Loop 8 Summer of Gods. So this was announced back in a Nintendo Direct last year. It's a game from Exceed and Marvelous that has kind of been described and marketed as kind of like a social sim RPG hybrid, lots of comparisons to Persona, et cetera, et cetera. We had a few people on staff that were kind of interested in just the concept of the game as a new IP. And Cullen, we were hoping to get him on this episode of the Tetracast, but he wasn't available. We'll see if we'll be able to get him within the next couple of weeks to talk about this. Unfortunately, he did not have a great time with Loop 8 Summer of Gods. He said that the game is very thin in terms of the conceit of acting out the same events in a time loop over and over again without a lot of variation. Instead, this game has a lot of the usual like social elements where you're increasing your bond and favor with the different cast of characters. These characters all have like 3 different parameters. I think it's like affection, hatred, and I forget what the third one is, but you kind of tier those up, and it just seems like the way that Cullen described it in his review is that surprisingly and unexpectedly, Loop 8 is a game that's like 70% about stats and just kind of grinding stats up and just getting these parameters higher and higher and higher in order to progress the story. And the way he describes it in his review is that he ended up just kind of getting bored. There wasn't enough variation from loop to loop. He thought it was a bit of a grind. He didn't think the characters were very endearing. There's a lot of dialogue that you're going to hear over and over again. And he had a lot of excitement for it and it didn't pan out. He had a lot of good ideas, but the execution wasn't good.
To be clear, he wasn't the only one who didn't enjoy it. There are other outlets who had reviews out for this too. And
a good 70% of the outlets that reviewed this game did not like it. And you know why it sucks? It's because they basically made the Haruhi Endless 8 into a video game.
I was gonna say what someone did. Fuck. Oh. But yeah.
Look, have we ever played a good time loop video game?
Yes, of course. Nausea.
Which one?
Nausea.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. But I'm trying to think of a bigger horror story like Little Witch Academia and the Chamber of Time. You're stuck in a time loop.
I like how he asks for a good example of a time loop game. You give him one, and then he just ignores it. He's like, "Oh, besides Nausea, all those other terrible time loop games."
Also, if it was a video game version of Endless 8, it would actually be a good video game.
But yeah, you can read up Colin's full reviews up on the site. Even though he didn't like the game in the end, he did substantiate his thoughts and write a pretty thorough review up on the site, and did talk about a few things that the game did at least have good ideas conceptually, even if the execution didn't quite pull through. I know that site friend Alex Seedhouse was also playing it for his website, Nintendo Insider. I don't know if his review's published, but he was feeling a lot of similar ways, and hearing him and Colin go back and forth as they were finalizing their impressions was a bit of a bummer just to see that it didn't quite pan out. Before we go on to the news, there's one other feature that I'll call out on the site, and that is the Street Fighter VI World Tour mode review that Josh put up on the site. It's titled like a review. It's an unscored review because it is specifically focused on the World Tour mode. And then, of course, Josh gave his thorough impressions on that in the first part of this podcast. But in case it wasn't clear, there is also a write-up up on the site as well. And Josh went very thorough into exactly how that feature plays and his impressions on it.
Yeah, behind the scenes, it was it's kind of like Alex edited it, and I think it's like a good mixture of our styles, let's say, because like Alex and I have very like conflicting like styles of writing, and like it kind of meshes up pretty well in this piece. If you're interested in giving it a read,
it's funny whenever Alex edits an opinion piece, if he's not that into it, he'll just be like, "Yep, looks fine." But if he's really passionate about it, he'll try to like poke.
Oh yeah, you should have seen the Google Doc, man. It looked like a fucking not a massacre. I think it was a stronger piece at the end. I really appreciated it. But we had a lot of fun getting this up. Yeah, it was great. It was a great opportunity. I never thought I would quote unquote review Street Fighter for RPG site.
On to the news, which is very it's very quiet this week, because mostly what we're looking at, as we kind of discussed a bit ago, is that in the next 2 or 3 weeks we have all the different publishers' summer events kind of starting to tee off. So it feels like, the usual saying of calm before the storm, et cetera, et cetera. But we do have a few things here. We do have one small kind of indie game announcement here. So this game announcement is for an RPG inspired by Skies of Arcadia called Sky Oceans Wings for Hire. This is being published by P-Cube and being developed by Octeto Studio. And we got a new announcement trailer for this game. It's very, very brief. It's got a very like chibi art style. It's only about 30 seconds. So it has kind of like the flashy headline of saying, hey, this is a game that's being inspired by Skies of Arcadia, which of course is a well-regarded, very classic RPG. But no other details other than this announcement from P-Cube and a few screenshots. Something to keep an eye on, but I don't know if there's really a whole lot more to speculate on at this point. We got some very small, tiny bit pieces of news for the upcoming, not Final Fantasy 16, but Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
This shit is so weird.
This is which is of course coming out.
Dumb question. Some really dumb questions and dumb answers.
All right, what's happening, Brian?
So of course we're only a few weeks away from Final Fantasy 16, but Square Enix is of course also working on the follow-up to Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, currently slated to release winter this year. And then after being quite quiet for the last while, we have from the official Twitter account just some kind of screenshotted FAQ question and answer about, like, I guess we're at the very start of ramping up marketing for this game. But these screenshots are a bit strange, and what it is that it poses a question, not exactly who proposed this or if it's just being answered in an FAQ like format. And they're right now at the time of recording, they've given 2 little infographics, and there's not a whole lot here, so don't get your excitement up. The first one says, question, how is development progressing on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? And then answer, we are currently working on nailing down a release date for the game.
You have to say, specify they bolded or nailing down a release date.
Oh yeah, so they changed like the font and the size and the color several different times on these little infographics, and that one's kind of fine. Like when that one was the only image that they shared, it's like, okay, they're still working on a release date. That's okay. The second one was a little bit more strange. Where question, how will players journey through the world outside of Midgar in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Answer, players will be able to journey across the wide and multifaceted world with a, this is in bold text, high degree of freedom, experiencing myriad of different stories along the way.
Jesus Christ.
And the thing is I don't want to poo-poo on this so much, but it's so like nebulous that there's really, it's interesting that they decided that they wanted to market in this fashion.
It's dumb marketing. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's stupid.
So
it's like stupid. Like it's like easy ways for people to get excited over like kind of nothing. But
yeah,
it's there. It's acknowledging that it exists, and then that's what people actually want for them to acknowledge it exists.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It kind of reminds me of watching sports, and every time after like the game, they'll ask like the coaches these questions, and it's like stupidest questions ever. It'll be like, "Oh, what do you think you did differently in this team?" And they will do like the same answers like every day, repeating the same shit. It's like, come on.
It is kind of like that, where it's like, we're going to give players a high degree of freedom, because of course they're not going to say like, well, actually, we're going to lock it down and direct them what to do.
Yeah, like, they said that. We promise we'll make sure you can't do shit.
They're not gonna tell you the
release outside of Midgar.
I will say though that it's been long enough since Final Fantasy VII Remake that I'm really excited for the next chapter and seeing what they will do with it. There's just nothing There's just nothing from this particular nugget of information my excitement is not being generated from this Q&A. It was it's more from my experience with the base remake.
You know what they should do? They should have these question and answer things at the back of FF16's box, instead of like the general description. Like, people don't care about what that is. Like, people just want to know what's happening with the next Final Fantasy. So they say you'll get exclusive Q&As at the box of 16's box art. Bam, more sales. So don't have to keep worrying about its pre-order number. Easy. Hire me, Square Enix. I know what's best.
I'm just looking people for the sound department. Sorry.
Here's a bit of news that might interest a few people here if they hadn't already played the game. And I know that this had been brought up in the past as something that should have been done. But Astlibra Revision, a game that Josh and Chow and Adam all thought pretty highly of last year, just received a revised English localization patch. Which I as far as I saw this headline, and to me this was like a surprise. Like, I didn't know this was in the works. Did we know this?
It was in the works in the interview that Josh did with the creator.
Okay. I had forgotten that nugget. I remembered the part about the Switch version. That was kind of like the big reveal from that interview, but didn't realize that, or I'd forgotten that they were reworking the translation.
Yeah.
There's some more infos. Like, it was actually like this patch thing. It was actually out like a couple months before, but it didn't fully complete the story. It was kind of like you're getting like the new translation, like a work in progress through like up to like chapter 6, but now it's like the entire story is fully relocalized now.
What's really cool about this patch, like, I haven't seen any compare contrast. Like, I think people say it reads better, it flows better. But what's cool how they're handling it is like, it's kind of like an opt-in. Like, you can choose between the old or the new. It's not like completely rewriting the old. Like, you can actually just like opt into the new English translation instead. I don't know if there's any plans for them to like actually like just go overwrite over the old one, which is nice because while definitely there are problems with the original translation for sure, it does sort of have like that kind of like 90s JRPG sort of like jankiness charm.
Yeah, it has that charm because my friend still sticks with the original translation and like, well, it's like, yeah, it's okay, it's readable, but I prefer something better. And I actually tried it out. The new translation feels great. I love
okay.
I love it. It's like every character, like they convey their message much better. While the original is just like it feels like playing RPG from the '90s, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Some people like that, some people
Pros and
don't.
cons. I wonder
Yeah.
if they'll do that for the Switch release. If they'll let them play with the old Northern you, that'd be
Yeah,
kind of
Mm.
cool.
because right now you can opt in using the Steam beta branch feature to opt into the old patch, which, like Josh said, it's kind of neat that they're not overwriting it. They're like, nope, this is how the game released. You can still play it this way. We've updated it to give you an option. We're not going to pretend the old translation never existed. But for Switch, I don't know if they have the same vehicle to offer that. But if they figure out a way to do it, I kind of hope they do. But just not sure what's available to them on that
Well, it
OS.
could be like a language setting. It'll be like it's like English or English old or like
No, yeah,
you could
I hope
probably
they do. I hope they do.
hopefully be probably something like that.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah, it'll be like English in parentheses classic and then English parentheses modern.
Mm.
So there you go. Modern
Easy.
English or classic English.
easy.
We have one kind of sales update / announcement of an announcement here, and that is that CD Projekt has announced that The Witcher 3 has sold over 50 million copies, which is insane.
That's a lot.
The series itself has sold over 75 million copies overall, including the original and Witcher 2. And then Cyberpunk 2077's DLC, Phantom Liberty, will have a showing of some sort at Summer Games Fest 2023, which again is like the stage show for that is on the 8th. So within a week, we'll see that DLC footage.
They didn't share how much Cyberpunk has sold.
As far as I know, they didn't. I mean, it sold a lot. It just they didn't provide any
I know,
update here.
yeah. It's just weird. They only highlighted the Witcher 3 getting over
Yeah,
that.
they highlight the Witcher 3 sales update, but then say because there are Witcher projects in the works too.
Yeah.
So they say here's a sales update for our Witcher series, and you're going to get a marketing update for Cyberpunk stuff coming in next week. So
Where's the sales updates for the original Witcher and Witcher 2? What the? Come on. We need a full breakdown.
But just the usual conversation about how we have these like orders of magnitude differences in depending on the publisher and just the series in general. How some games can sell 1 million and be a massive success, and then Witcher 3 is like, how about 50 million? And
I want to see like a bar graph of like the overall sales of Witcher 1 and then the overall sales of Witcher 2 and then compare that to like Witcher 3 by it.
Yeah. And then the rest of the slate here of news posts is mostly about either release dates or event dates about when we're going to learn more information about upcoming games. And I believe I have this mostly chronological, but let's see. I probably don't have it quite right. So in order, we already talked about how Summer Games Fest is going to be next week. We'll be able to hopefully talk about that next week's episode of the Tetracast. Also, in the next week, we're going to have the final digital event for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak on June 7th. James has mentioned in the past that it's kind of where Monster Hunter Rise has been out a few years now, and see kind of what is next for Monster Hunter. What is Monster Hunter 6 going to be? And I know that seems maybe unfair to look at a Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak event and wonder, what's next?
They outright said that the previous title update was basically the last one. This is basically a bonus one where we get one final new monster, which is a variant of Malzeno, and like some slight changes, but it's not a major title update. It's like the cherry on top.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, for all intents and purposes, besides this, Sunbreak is done.
Mm-hmm.
They've finished supporting it. So we are heading into the moment where we should start hearing about Monster Hunter 6, especially considering that World came out in early 2018. So it's been over 5 years since then. It was a different team that worked on the updates and Iceborne. So we
It's been
could
cooking for a while.
Yeah, we probably won't get it this year. They would have announced it by now, but there's a good chance. Well, we are almost certainly going to get it next year. Like I would put money on that.
And for those that have kept up to date with Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak and want to see what the final update is, then we'll have that event in just a few days. Then later in June, on June 9th, we'll get the PC releases of Dungeons Travelers 2 and Dungeons Travelers 2-2. We talked about this announcement about a month ago or so when it was made. And again, these are coming to PC through the Joren launcher because they weren't approved to release on Steam. But
I do want to put special notice on the fact that that is still messed up. Dungeon Travelers 2, you can say a lot of things about it, but it was rated by the ESRB. It got an M rating, but the ESRB was fine with it. And yet Steam wasn't fine with it. That's whack.
I
That's
feel like
whack.
I feel like
Yeah.
they put way worse games on Steam.
They do. They do.
And-
So it's like, and it's and to Shiravune's credit, they are saying that they are looking into the possibility of releasing it on other storefronts. Hopefully, we can get a GOG release or something.
Epic Game Store.
Yeah, it's messed up. I do want to play these eventually. Unfortunately, this is just the worst possible time for them to release in.
Yeah, it's bad, dude.
It's like literally if it wasn't for 16 coming out in 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks, maybe. But all of next week, I'm just gonna be swamped with work between like
Mhm.
Summer Games Fest and all sorts of other things that are not like directly related, but basically it's the equivalent of E3. E3 is dead, but at least on my end, it's not like anything's changed.
Mhm. And
So
like for me, I'm looking at like Final Fantasy 16 as like a due date. Like you got to finish Miasma Chronicles and then System Shock, and I still haven't finished War Tales
and
or
here's the thing,
Pokemon or Zelda.
and it's like I know that both Dungeon Travelers 2 and 2-2 are 100 plus hour dungeon RPGs.
yeah,
I'm
I can vouch for that. I played the original quite a bit.
It's like I'd love to cover that. And hey, if Shirabune's listening, they're fine with a delayed release. I'm down to get to it in my free time and cover it for the site. I'm putting that out publicly, but it's like I don't think really anyone on the site has time in their schedule right now to bum rush to 100-hour dungeon RPGs.
I didn't realize they were that long.
But-
Man, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We need to like somehow find more time.
Yeah.
Just magically in the space-time continuum will grab more time and
And the thing that especially
Make
sucks
it
about this is that if these were on Steam, it would be way easier to make time for it because these would 100% play on Steam Deck. I'm sure of it. Just sucks.
I don't know, like if you do like install, like is there any way to like kind of install
Well,
these on a
Joran
Steam
has
Deck?
really intensive DRM, and I don't know how that would play with
Oh,
Proton.
really?
It's
Yeah.
that's the main reason people are upset that they're on Joran, but it's also as of right now, that was the only option they had. We knew months ago that they were working on this we didn't know specifically specifically Shiravume, but we could guess that they were working on this based off of the fact that it showed up as being banned on Steam. It's
It stings because all the other Shiravude announcements lately are coming to Steam as well.
Yeah. And it's easy enough to say that the reason why Chaos Head managed to get on Steam after all of that shenanigans is unfortunately for Shiravume and fortunately for Spike Chunsoft, Science Adventure and Spike Chunsoft are bigger properties and games, bigger properties and publishers than Shiravume. I'm pretty sure there's games that Spike Chunsoft has published on PC that have sold at least close to 1 million copies, so they probably have some sway to get a reevaluation. Shiravume, no way in hell. It sucks, but that's just how it is.
Yeah.
There's no new news here about the date, but just a reminder as we're going in order, June 11th is the date for the Xbox Game Showcase and the Starfield Direct. The only real bit here is that Microsoft and Xbox put out a tweet that was just advertising the event that is very like people have identified it as Fable kind of designed in terms of like the green colors and the sparkles and the initial teaser trailer that they showed a few years ago. So it's not outright confirmed, but lots of speculation that we might see Fable at the Xbox Game Showcase. And then of course the second feature with specifically about Starfield that we already know. Then on June 16th, Sega and RGG Studio announced having an RGG Summer Summit event. And for that studio, the two games that we know that they are in the process of making right now is the Like a Dragon spinoff called Like a Dragon Gaiden: The Man Who Erased His Name. This is the side story. I don't know if side story is the right word. The Kiryu focused story about his goings on before the events of Yakuza 7. That one's currently slated to release at some point this year, so I'm guessing we'll get a release date and window for that game. And then, of course, Like a Dragon 8, the initial teaser from a year back, slated for release next year. Might see more details on that game as well.
Yeah, I'm very, very interested in what they're going to show here. The first and one they showed of these last year was a banger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to imagine this is where we're actually going to finally see gameplay of like the man who erased his name. That's one that I'm really interested in, and maybe we'll start getting like at least a release time frame or release platform. Actually, did they already announce release platforms for Like a Dragon 8? I forgot.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, but
well, on our site we have listed both last gen and current gen. I don't know. I'll have to double check. Maybe that could have just been us guessing at the time.
No, I think they did actually announce it there for those.
Oh yeah,
systems.
yep. PlayStation 4, 5, 1 series. So they might pivot from that, but currently that's what's announced.
Yeah, big.
And as a sidestep, I still feel weird just talking like, "Yep, Kiryu's still around," like because that was this thing where, like you were trying to be like courteous, but then like they're just like he's going to be featuring in both of these upcoming games. Like, all right,
he's going to be a K-pop star. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so like, all right, I guess you can't speak around that, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit bummed that they didn't have the like the release announcement trailer for this event like they did like the first one where they had like all those celebrities that eventually ended up being like the battle cards and
oh right,
and what was it, the Like a Dragon spinoff that came out this year?
Ishin.
Ishin, yeah.
And it feels like one game I did manage to make time for and play through.
Feels like an eternity ago already.
Feels like an eternity ago.
I already forgot the name. I was like, how was that? I reviewed it like earlier this year. I was like, it was like 4 months ago. I'm like, I can't remember.
I like February feels like an eternity ago in terms of some respects, but then last week in terms of others. This year's just been crazy.
Jesus.
This one was a bit of a surprise in terms of the release announcement, but I think it was something we kind of expected. Eventually, Front Mission First Remake, which initially released last year exclusive to Switch in November, it will be launching for PlayStation, Xbox, and PC on June 30th. So this is a week after the delay for Front Mission Second Remake.
It was a bad release date. I'm sorry. That's a bad release date. I get it. I understand, and I'm excited to play this eventually on PC again, but it's a bad release date.
Any June date's a bad release date.
I'm sorry.
Man, it's sharing the release date with everybody's 1-2 Switch.
It's doomed. Oh, it's so fucking over.
Are you just referring to Final Fantasy, or was there something else on June 30th?
I'm just thinking of like Final Fantasy, and then there's like other July release dates. It's like a bad like time because like everyone's gonna be Did focus on FF16 for a while, right?
Right,
So it's
right.
just yeah. It's like Fuga being released before right before Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh,
This Fuga is short enough. I was able to get it out ahead of time.
Yeah, but but for a lot of people, it's like people saying the Zelda game's good.
here's a more straightforward one. WrestleQuest, a game that we detailed also probably around that February timeframe, has a release date, and that'll be August 8th. So starting to get that past summer month release date calendar filled in.
We're starting to we're starting to hear of games that are coming out at almost the latter half of this year. It's crazy. Like in the next few weeks, we're gonna finally know what videos are gonna come out at the latter half of this year. It's a big mystery now, but supposedly there'll be video games.
And remember, WrestleQuest is not to be confused with Wrestle Story.
Okay.
We delineated that back in March or so. But yeah, WrestleQuest coming out in August. Wrestle Story still not dated. Something that will be coming out. This is another announcement for 2023, and that is the announcement of an official English release for White Album: Memories Like Falling Snow. Now, Josh, I remember when I saw this announcement made, a lot of people were really excited. Can you speak to me for what this game was and why seeing that it's getting an English announcement was exciting for people?
The White Album series has been kind of
The romance.
no, but it's kind of been like the Moby Dick of VN localization, where these have been very popular in Japan, like a romance visual novel, well written, especially in White Album 2, which we're all crossing our fingers eventually gets the localization announcement after this eventually. But
It's one of the few, I think, few visual novels that has a perfect rating back from Dengeki back when it first came out, and I agree with that score 100%.
White Album 1 or White Album 2?
2.
Yeah.
1 is okay. It's not groundbreaking, but if 1 comes out, then there's a high chance that 2 will come out.
Yeah, that's the rare hope. I mean,
Assuming the first one sells well enough, which just to be clear, if you like visual novels and you want to be able to read White Album 2 in a localization, it is your duty to buy this game on Steam.
Pretty much. But White Album 1 is not bad. I think it's a little bit insane in an entertaining way because kind of the character's kind of a dumbass.
The problem with 1 is just the pacing. It's very slow burn. It just takes forever for something to happen.
Yeah, but you do have I forgot is the VN itself voice acted, or was that only the anime adaptation?
It was only the anime adaptation, but eventually they make a newer port, then they added the voice actings to it, and then it got really famous voice actors. So it got Aya Hirano playing as the main girl, and the other main girl is played by Nana Mizuki.
Yeah.
So you got these two top of the stardom carrying this game, so you can imagine.
Well, Josh Tolentino's news post for this announcement says that Shirafune's localization appears to be based on the PS3 remake from 2010 that did add voice acting. And I'm looking on the Steam page. Some people are saying, "Hey, please add a 1998 version." I assume that's the original release, but it looks like this is based off from my understanding of reading the news post, the 2010 PS3 version.
Yeah, if this has voice acting, that's awesome. That'd be a big boost for that game. But it's. Like I said, White Album 1 is it's one of those things that the announcement itself is kind of mind blowing because it's kind of the you kind of need 1 to get to 2. Not to say that you really need to have knowledge of 1 to appreciate 2, but
2 is pretty standalone. Yeah, but they make some references to 1, oh yeah, it's have you heard this song? And then it's a reference to the song from 1. So
yeah. But I think it's just one of those things that the prospect of this leads to something much, much, much greater. Hopefully, eventually,
I think what's good about 2 is one of the thing is that it's more focused on the college life, college years. I know it starts in high school, but it's more focused on college years. Too many romance stories takes place in high school, but they never talk about the college years and those kind of eras
So
of
basically, like,
storyline.
White Album 1 is very much about kind of like, the pacing is kind of crazy in it, but it's still mostly a high school setting, in it. While White Album 2 is really interesting because, like, while the first one comes like in one big, like, it's a standalone like full game. White Album 2 is like there's the introductory part and closing chapter. There's like kind of like part 1 and part 2 of the story. Part 1 is high school focus. Some things happen at the end of part 1, and then part 2 happens, and that's like a very, very big tonal shift and a very big um change of pace and focus of the story. And
I
like
will never forgive the anime community for shunning the anime by watching Golden Time, which is a freaking disaster. And then they're like, "Oh, they didn't watch they didn't watch White Album 2." And then later on, they find out, "Oh wait, White Album 2 is a way superior show." And because we didn't watch it, they wouldn't make the second season to do closing chapter.
White Album the anime adaptation only did the introductory part. But yeah, so like I said, White Album 1 in itself is like, it's okay. I'll say so. I know a little bit about it because my friend and I marathoned the anime adaptation of it to watch White Album 2, and then I eventually read the rest of White Album 2 after watching the show.
2 is just too good.
Yeah, it's really too good. But like, look, like James said, if you know anything, if you like VNs, if you like romance VNs, if you like well written romance VNs, White Album 2 is definitely a very good one. But in order to get it here, definitely
must buy
support
one.
one. Yeah,
Must buy one.
and not to say that the one is not a bad VN. It's okay. Like it's more typical, but it's okay. I'd say.
I don't know. I think if we were
This is exciting, and it also gets batshit insane in one too, in terms of like who the main character gets involved with, because it's oh my god, the main character's so stupid. That's all I'll say. Oh my god.
All right, guys, I have a hot off the press.
Okay, go for it.
Well, it's not quite off the press. I got a Google alert for a news post from Gamatsu. Gamatsu is a great site. You should support them and follow them if you're not already.
Absolutely.
It says, according to producer Yoshinori Kitase, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is progressing smoothly and according to plan. And so I pulled this up, and it's just Gamatsu sharing the tweet that we mentioned earlier, which is fine. Like there's not much there to go off of, but that kind of explicitly says why they do it, because people like us or like Sal over at Gamatsu will talk about it, and then Google will grab it and push it to my smartphone and remind people that I don't know. I just thought that was just silly that I follow this back to the primary new information, and it's this little silly question infographic from them. Anyways,
there's also another one of these surprise visual novel announcements from Shirobune that we didn't cover on the site. Shirobune also announced that they're bringing the Kara no Shoujo series over here, and then the first part releasing July 28th. So to be clear, the Kara no Shoujo series is a trilogy, and part 1 and part 2 originally got released in English. I think about some time back. I don't know how long ago, but it was by Manga Gamer, and they only did the first 2 parts of it. They never did the third part.
The reason why, and I'll be very curious to see how this manages to release, is because I believe only the first part was like allowed on Steam, and then the second part was not, and that kind of just derailed their entire plans for the third one. So if Shirobune can manage to get all of these on Steam, which again, considering what we talked about with Dungeon Travelers 2, where it can be really, it's hard not to think that it really depends on who looks at your application. It just that. How else do you explain like how like inconsistent it is?
Yeah. So Shirobune is that's actually re-releasing, but obviously with their own original translation. We got a little bit about the staff announcement. I forgot. I apologize. I forgot their name off the top of my head. It was the one who also did DS Ire and Raging Loop. God, I have to look this up because now I'm blanking. It
worries.
is John Hooper.
Mhm.
They announced on Twitter that they are working with Shirobune on this.
Should
So
be a great translation.
yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about their works on those other projects. So yeah, they're bringing this Akarana Shoujo over as the Shell, and then the first part, the Shell Part One Inferno, is coming to Steam on July 28th. It's also releasing. Are they? Is there another storefront they're also releasing these on?
Let me check. I'm sure it'll probably be on Jorin as well, even if realistically, if it's on Steam, nobody's gonna buy that on Jorin. Let's see.
Yeah, but
It says wishlist now on Steam. I think that's the only place they're releasing it. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So, yeah. I've heard nothing but good things about this series. I'm clueless about it. All I've heard from people is like it's one of their favorites. They really like it. And I told them, okay, give me a little bit more than that. Like, give me like a little snippet. It doesn't have to be a spoiler. It's like a mystery detective thriller. I'm like, okay, all right, sure, that sounds awesome. Sign me up. So they say it's one of those. It's like usually the less you know, the better. I hear. So I'm interested. So once again, it seems to be a really good time to be someone interested in visual novels. If you're into visual novels, you should be thrilled, I guess. With recent announcements in that genre. And but once again, this is like these are all releasing in an already crowded year. It feels like. So how the fuck am I gonna make time for these?
You don't.
Am I gonna read White Album out loud while we're playing Street Fighter, Cal? Is that it?
Yes, I'll read it for you.
Oh, thank you,
I,
Cal.
I would spectate that match.
You know what?
Cal?
If you guys do a casual mode of Ace Attorney, I'll read it to you. I'll even do the voice acting for you.
we have to get that effort kicked back up. So, but
Yeah,
maybe
that's tough. Yeah.
But I
one.
promise, if you do a thing, if you stream a visual novel, I'll try to do the voice acting
Yeah,
for you.
Cal's gonna be like, Ayahirado said.
Be careful streaming a VN. People have gone to prison for that.
Oh shit.
I guess I'm going to jail. The ESA's after me.
There's one other news post here, and that is for a cancellation of something that I had forgotten was announced. So back last summer, last June 8th, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2 was released for Switch by publisher Aspire Media. And they announced, and with a fair bit of pomp and circumstance, that they were going to follow up with official DLC to add the restored content mod, a very popular mod for the PC version of the game that cuts out a lot of the original development intent for Knights of the Republic 2. Aspire was going to put in the Switch version as an officially supported release. Here we are about a year later since that announcement, and Aspire has stated that they are no longer proceeding with updating the Switch version of Knights of the Republic 2 with the restored content mod. They tweeted out this apology on their social media page and stated that anyone who has purchased the game for Switch will be able to pick a replacement key for another Star Wars game, either on Switch, like getting Force Unleashed, Republic Commando, Episode 1 Racer, etc., or getting the Steam version of Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Be clear, this is only if you bought it before this announcement.
Yeah. So, and part of me is, I saw, like, when we tweeted this out, there are a few people, understandably so, in our mentions saying that they were really disappointed because this was something they're really eager to see, because for some people this would have been like new content for them for a classic game. And now, like, it's available on Steam, but not everyone likes to play their games that way, etc., and it's not officially supported. It's kind of in the same place as like the unofficial patch for Vampire the Masquerade, where it's very easy to find and install, but it's not officially supported. So it's still kind of used at your own not risk really, but installation, and making sure that you have everything configured appropriately in order to enjoy it. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, they weren't able to make it happen. So
That's a shame. At least they're trying to make good on it, and you know, in the small way that they can.
Yeah, and like the fact that they were able to provide the extra key for a replacement game, it doesn't make up for it in terms of people who are really excited to see this specific thing. But like when I was reading their post, like I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, wow, they're able to make that happen. Like that's really generous of them, and they're trying to make
Yeah.
good. But and of course, this is where I am obligated to ask: when is Knights of the Old Republic 1 on Steam going to be updated to support like widescreen and modern resolutions and things like that? Because they did all that update for 2, but they never did it for 1, and that bummed me out.
We're all still waiting for that KOTOR 1 remake.
Yeah, that's it. I just gotta wait for the remake that'll surely release. Then no one will want the original game anymore.
Okay, what will release first? Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 or KOTOR 1 remake?
Oh,
Secret
geez.
third option, Skull and Bones.
I'll take the secret option.
I don't
think
know.
Skull and Bones is a real video game. I think Ubisoft is going to keep pretending it is until the the Malaysian government gets off their case and forgets they even gave them money. I think.
And then like the fourth option to spring off of that is like Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh, there's a heated. That list is a tough one. Fuck.
And that covers it for all the news posts of this podcast. So not a lot this week, but potentially a lot next week. Though it's hard to say because sometimes these Summer Games Fests are more hype than substance, but we'll see.
I am saluting all three of you, and I'm guessing Adam as well. Good luck.
Man, I don't know what to expect. I really don't know what to expect. Mortal Kombat 1 RPG.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have all of the features and reviews that we talked about up on the website at rpgsite.net. You can find RPG Site on all the social media platforms, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for RPG Site and you should be able to find us. You can join our Discord by hitting the link at the top of our homepage or going to discord.gg/RPG Site. And we'll be back next week with another edition of the Tetracast. You can listen to us on all your favorite podcast service. Please give us a like, a comment, or a review if you enjoy what we're doing. We do like to see that feedback. If there's anything that we can do better, go ahead and give us that feedback as well. We're always looking to improve. But until you hear from us next time with all of the results from the onset of the summer gaming festivities, we'll wish James good luck for all of his hard work in the coming weeks. We'll catch back up with him later, and you will hear from us next time. Until then, stay safe and take care. We'll talk to you all later.
Can you imagine a Mortal Kombat 1 RPG? You do the fatality, and then like the damage numbers is like all 9999999 every time you hit that fatality. Fucking sick.